Chapter 1052. Everyone fell silent at Shi Lin's words. In fact, deep in their hearts, they were still skeptical about this matter. After all, for Zen Master Dade and Zen Master Daning's Zen hearts to be damaged to the extent that their minds were shaken to the point that even their Tathagata's Dharmakaya was broken, it must have been a rather direct impact and a fundamental denial that could cause such serious consequences. Even King Rosen, Shi Zhongmao, might have sounded confident, but he might not be so sure about what he was thinking. Otherwise, his emotions would not have fluctuated. Lin Feng's many amazing feats of turning the impossible into the possible also made everyone's hearts pound. During the Battle of Shu Mountain back then, Lin Feng pointed out a problem that even the people of Shu Mountain Sword Sect did not realize. In the end, he changed the great immortal heaven manifestation sword formation into the heaven punishing sword formation, shattering the sword hearts of Shu Mountain sword cultivators from top to bottom. What happened today was like a reenactment of the past. Emperor Qin Shiryu, who was sitting on the dragon throne, said slowly, "No matter what, from the current situation, Xianmin Tianzong's losses outweigh his gains." The others nodded silently. Xianmin Tianzong's actions this time had undoubtedly pushed him to the opposite side of Buddhism. If time went back 10,000 years, the Great Lane Monastery might have started a war with Xianmin Tianzong. Even if they did not really fight, it was inevitable that they would see each other as enemies in the future. Although Buddhism was weak and the Great Lane Monastery no longer existed, Buddhism was not extinct after all. The Five Realized Sutra of Buddhism was still a top Buddhist cultivation in the Tianyuan Great World. Not to mention Zen Master Dade, Zen Master Daning, and Zen Master Dakong, who were experts at the second level of the Golden Body realm. During the battle to exterminate Buddhism back then, the last abbot of the Great Thunderclap Monastery and the three Supreme Elders had a total of 4 experts at the third level of the Golden Body realm. 3 of them had died, but there was still one Supreme Elder, Zen Master Zhiheng, who had broken out of the encirclement and was stranded outside. Although the Great Lane Monastery was destroyed, it still had some foundation. It was just that it had to keep a low profile because of the environment. And now that the Xianmin Sky Sect is rising more and more powerfully, and also because of Lin Feng's kindness to Zen Master Dade and the act of collecting Buddhist scriptures and relics, the other forces of the Divine Continent are all guessing in their hearts that the remaining forces of the Great Thunder Temple in the past are very likely to gradually join the Xianmin Sky Sect. So the strength of the Xianmin Sky Sect is becoming more and more powerful. But from the looks of it, it was the celestial sect of wonders who had courted death and cut off this path. Even Zen Master Daning had been persuaded by Zen Master Dade and had the intention to join the Xian Gate Heavenly Sect. Now it seemed that he had become an enemy. As for the celestial sect of the celestial sect of the celestial sect of wonders, Zen Master Dade, who had made a lot of contributions to the sect, was also severely injured. His strength declined, and his future was uncertain. Not to mention other outside influences, Xianmin Tianzong's own forces had been damaged. These were only the losses that could be calculated on the surface. The hidden losses that could not be calculated were even greater. Zen Master Dade, who had made great contributions to the sect, had his Zen heart broken. What would Zhuge Zhan, Miao Shihao, Kong Nanhua, and the others in Xianmin Tianzong think? What would the Mahayana grade magic treasures, such as the Bipolar Sky Peak, Xintian Seal, and Sangtian Dao Jian, think? How would the other experts in the outside world who wanted to join Xianmin Tianzong not have doubts? Maybe everything was just an accident. Xianmin Tianzong did not want this to happen. But if an accident happened again, who could guarantee that the next unlucky person would not be them? For the Great Qin Dynasty, even the Purple Sky Dao, the Northern Militant Royal Court, the Accelerated Sword Sect, and the Thunderbolt Sword Sect, they had the same concerns. So it was not only Stone Feather, Shi Zhongmao, Shi Zhongtong, and the other experts of the Great Qin Dynasty. At this moment, all the experts of the human race were paying attention to the development of the monks going to Kunlun. Perhaps because they did not receive the news, or because they could not get away, or because of other considerations, there were no Buddhist experts who had achieved the golden body among the monks who went to Kunlun. The ones with the highest cultivation were only Monk Yuan Xin and Monk Yuan Sheng, who were at the late Yuanying realm. Under their lead, the monks gathered together. They had solemn expressions and walked silently. They did not break through the space to escape. Instead, they walked over mountains and rivers. They walked all the way to the depths of the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain to the bank of Yunfeng Mirror Lake. Although none of the monks who crossed the mountains had achieved the golden body of Buddhism, they had an awe-inspiring and dignified aura. In the area of Kunlun Mountain, anything that happened was mostly under the control of Xianmin Tianzong. When the monks arrived, Lin Feng and his disciple naturally knew. Zhu Yi and Wang Lin stood on Yujing Mountain. Their gazes seemed to pass through the layers of void and landed on the mountains of Kunlun Mountain. Tiantai, Tianxi, remember to take it step by step, Zhu Yi said lightly. Behind him, Yang Tai and Li Xingfei bowed and answered, "Yes, master." The two left the mountain and went to Yunfeng. Zhu Yi turned his head and looked at Wang Lin. Although after the incident with Zen Master Danning, the current situation was also expected, I did not think that the situation would develop to this point. However, the more the truth is debated, the clearer it becomes. This is also the path that must be taken. Wang Lin nodded. I'll go and see Zen Master Dade. After Yang Tai and Li Xingfei went down Yunfeng, they came to the shore of Mirror Lake and bowed in front of the monks. Although they could not see Wang Lin, Zhu Yi, and the others, which made the monks a little dissatisfied, there was nothing they could do. After all, the people who were equal to Wang Lin and the others had to be Buddhist powerhouses like Zen Master Danning and Monk Dakong. Although Yang Tai and Li Xingfei were still cultivators in the Golden Elixir period, they were decent people and had high status. They were the personal disciples of Zhu Yi and Wang Lin, respectively. A young monk thought in his heart, if I refute you, let's see if your master can still sit still. Monk Yuan Xion's expression was calm. We have no other purpose for coming here. We heard that your sect has a different understanding of our Buddhist Tao of karma, so we came here to discuss Tao. Yang Tai turned to look at Li Xingfei. Li Xingfei nodded and said calmly, My master already knows why you are here, so he specially ordered me to wait here for you masters. It's normal to discuss Tao and ask for advice, so it's fine. I wonder if you want to greet Zen Master Dave first, or start discussing Tao directly. Monk Yuan Xion and Monk Yuan Sheng shook their heads. Let's start directly. There's no hurry with Uncle Master Dade. Actually, some monks still had some complaints about Zen Master Dade. They felt that he had let a wolf into the house, which led to today's disaster. However, Zen Master Dade's seniority was high and he was dignified, so it was not appropriate for them to say anything. Yang Tai said, Please forgive me for my poor hospitality. After saying that, he led the monks up Cloud Peak and into the central hall. After entering the hall, they sat down. The monks faced Yang Tai and Li Xingfei, but there was no disturbance. They were all answered by Monk Yuan Xion and Monk Yuan Sheng. Almsgiverly, forgive me for not agreeing with you. Monk Yuan Sheng put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. Strange things are common in the world, and my brother and I are not ignorant and inexperienced people. All these years I have lived in seclusion in the village, and I have seen many similar things. There are things that seem strange and have no reason, but in fact, it's just because the truth is hidden and mortals are unable to know. Monk Yuan Sheng said, For example, there was a man in the village who dreamed of being bitten by a giant insect. He woke up with a start every time and couldn't sleep at night, looking haggard. Later, when he fell asleep again, he killed the giant insect in his dream. When he woke up, he found a small insect the size of a thumb outside the window that looked exactly like the insect in his dream. The insect was already dead, and the man never had nightmares again. Rumor has it that this man killed insects in his dream, but it's actually just a kind of monster. It can only enter dreams to harm people and injure their souls, but it's very weak itself. If it was injured by someone in the dream, its soul would be destroyed and it would really die. Monk Yuan Sheng looked at Li Xingfei and Yang Tai and said in a deep voice, There are some things in the world that can't be explained with cause and effect. It's because we don't understand cause and effect, not because cause and effect doesn't exist. Monk Yuan Xin spread out his palms. Please take a look. Here are two iron balls that are extremely similar in weight. There was an iron ball in each of his palms, and they looked exactly the same. Monk Yuan Xin said silently, "For mortals, they can't tell the difference in weight between these two iron balls. Even the most accurate scale can't measure the difference. Even qi condensation cultivators and even foundation establishment cultivators can't detect or measure it. But this doesn't mean that the weight of these two iron balls is exactly the same." Monk Yuan Xin said, "This poor monk, fellow Taoists, or any cultivator of the Golden Elixir period or Yuanying period could detect the slight difference in weight." Yang Tai and Li Xingfei looked at each other and smiled. Li Xingfei said, "But from the point of view of mortals, when we're in the qi condensation and foundation establishment realms, whether it's us or a great master, in reality, we don't know if there's a definite difference between the two iron balls." Monk Yuan Xin also smiled. "That's right, but there are too few iron balls like this, and we can already measure most of them." Li Xingfei shook her head. "But there's another situation. If we use the same method all the time, then no matter how long it takes, there will always be some iron balls that can't be accurately measured." All the monks shook their heads at the same time. "That's impossible." Some arrogant people even sneered in their hearts. In tens of thousands of years, who knows how many experts there have been, but no one has been able to shake the path of Buddhism. Even Taishu Temple hasn't been able to do so. If you want to criticize us, Xianmin Tianzong, you should at least have established your own sect for more than 10,000 years. It's not like there aren't meteors that pass by in a flash. Li Xingfei's expression was calm. She pointed her finger lightly, and a ball of light and shadow appeared in front of everyone. A moment later, on Mount Yujing, Lin Feng's heart suddenly stirred. He glanced at the void below the mountain and slightly raised his eyebrows. First, Shu Mountain made me break their glass hearts, and now it's Buddhism's turn. But in all honesty, us master and disciples really didn't come here just to break their Tao hearts. In the future, I won't get the nickname of the destroyer of Tao hearts, right? This reputation doesn't sound good. He shook his head and looked at Zen Master Dade in front of him. "Master, let's continue." Chapter 1053. At this moment, Monk Dade in front of Lin Feng also manifested his Buddhist golden body, just like Monk Daning did not long ago. The old monk's whole body was like a gilded Buddha statue, his whole body flashing with golden brilliance. But at this time, his golden body was also covered with spiderweb-like cracks, just not as serious as Monk Daning's. But the mental state of Monk Dade was already a world of difference compared to before. His eyes were now filled with contemplation and enlightenment, no longer struggling and bewildered like before. Although the golden body was covered with cracks, it did not give people a sense of desolation, because the Buddhist light on his body was calm and stable, full of a sense of perfection and freedom. Lin Feng clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Master, you really are a man of great wisdom and courage." Buddhist Monk Dade put his palms together, shook his head, and said, "Sovereign's words make this old monk ashamed. If it weren't for Sovereign's timely reminder, I don't know when this old monk would have woken up. In this process, even the slightest mistake would have shattered my golden body." "Master, you're too serious." Lin Feng waved his hand. "It's best if the truth can be figured out by oneself. If someone else interferes, it will inevitably be disadvantageous. This is also the reason why I have not interfered before. Although I discuss with you later, I felt uneasy, afraid that it would delay your cultivation." A smile appeared at the corner of Lin Feng's mouth. "But Master, you are indeed an eminent monk with deep roots of wisdom. Although I interfered, I did not delay your cultivation. This makes me very happy." He shook his head and said, "In fact, from the beginning, it would be best if the Buddhist disciples could realize the mysteries of karma, fate, and defying fate themselves. But now that I'm involved in it, I'm still a little lacking. I'll need the reverend and the eminent monks of Buddhism to put in more effort." Monk Dade smiled slightly, full of wisdom. If Master did not extend a helping hand, I am afraid that I and the others will not be able to jump out of the fixed circle for the rest of my life, forever ignorant of the sky from the bottom of a well. Jumping out of the well is small wisdom. Realizing that one is in the well is great wisdom. I only have small wisdom, but I lack great wisdom. Lin Feng gazed towards the void below Jade Capital Mountain. It's just that today's matter was not my original intention. How can you blame your master and disciple? Monk Dade smiled bitterly. It is my fault. If I had kept my mouth shut with junior brother Daning that day, it would not have gotten to this point. Lin Feng said, "You can't say that. Master, you do not want junior brother Daning to have a conflict with our sect. But junior brother is not a member of our sect. Whatever he wants to do, I will not interfere." Xianmin Tianzong. If he had come to our sect to reason with us that day, we would not have avoided him. As long as he did not hurt anyone or destroy it, we would not have made things difficult for him. If Monk Daning wanted to leave on his own, Xianmin Tianzong, would not interfere with what he talked about with others on the way. I sent my disciple to accompany him only to protect his safety, lest he was taken advantage of by thieves. After he escaped safely, I will not follow him again. Lin Feng put his hands behind his back and said silently, "Although I and my disciple are exploring the way of cause and effect, I have no intention of attacking or provoking Buddhism. I only revealed the results to you personally in the hope that it will be of help to you in your cultivation. We will not deliberately leak the information, but if it is really spread, we will not deliberately conceal it and detain all those who know. I will not do such a thing. The more the truth is debated, the clearer it becomes. The truth will not change because of one's will or become non-existent. If someone can prove that what I and my disciple think is wrong, then I will be happy. As a cultivator, we are always exploring and moving forward on the long road." Lin Feng said, "Just like today when I discussed the way with you, I also gained something." Monk Dade frowned and said, "It is just that the impact of this matter is not good. It may cause other forces to misunderstand and fear our sect and you." Lin Feng chuckled. "It is not a problem. In fact, such things are not rare in the history of the Divine Land. It is just that this time, because it is the way of cause and effect of Buddhism, the reaction is extremely strong." Hearing this, Monk Dade smiled bitterly. His gaze also looked at the void below Yujing Mountain, as if he was looking at the hall above the clouds. He sighed softly. "If you pass this test, you will achieve Bodhi. If you cannot, you will suffer in the sea of bitterness. I can lead you out of the sea of bitterness, but if you do not achieve Bodhi, you will not be free. We, the disciples of Buddhism, cultivate ourselves. Jumping out of the well is the true freedom. Otherwise, we will be trapped in other wells one day." At this moment, the Yunfeng Hall in Xianmin Tianzong was like a shuraba where there was no blood or filth. The group of monks led by Yuan Xian and Yuan Sheng were all in a daze. They were speechless, as if they had turned into clay statues or wooden sculptures. The monks with lower cultivation were more normal. It was just that they were all agitated and loudly reprimanded Li Xingfei and Yang Tai. But when they were asked to explain, they were tongue-tied and could only look at their elders. But Yuan Xian, Yuan Sheng, and the other monks with higher cultivations, at this moment, their gazes were filled with confusion and struggle. Their lips trembled, unable to say a word, especially the Yuanying Buddhist cultivators. At this moment, their bodies were all flashing with dazzling Buddhist light. They could not control themselves. Yang Tai frowned and put his hands together. The mixed origin heaven-sealing Dharma realm appeared in the center and covered all the monks. Under pressure, the group of monks began to attack Yang Tai. Yang Tai did not say a word. He combined his spells and the defensive Dharma shield to resist the monks' attacks. The two late-stage Yuanying cultivators, Yuan Xian and Yuan Sheng, reacted and hurriedly stopped their fellow disciples. "Stop. Almsgiver Yang is preventing your Buddhist light from going out of control and devouring the disciples with lower cultivation." They finally stopped the chaotic situation, but the atmosphere in the hall was still extremely anxious. Li Xingfei said, "Fellow Buddhists who are willing to stay in our sect to discuss Tao, feel free to stay." Many monks' eyes were lifeless and muddle-headed as they stood there in a daze. Some revealed expressions of deep thought and immediately sat down cross-legged and fell into deep thought. There were also many who could not calm down. These people could not accept the fact that the Tao of karma had been shaken. They could not accept the existence of things that couldn't be explained by karma. However, they could not think of any words to refute it. Their minds were in a mess, and evil thoughts grew in their hearts. They only felt that the Xianmen Tianzong in front of them was like hell, and they subconsciously wanted to escape. All laws are empty. Only karma is not empty. No one knew who was the first to shout. Then he rushed out of the Cloud Peak Hall, down the Cloud Peak, and rushed towards the Kunlun Mountains. After him, many monks also rushed out, wanting to get away from the Xianmen Tianzong that brought them nightmares. Li Xingfei and Yang Tai were silent. As long as the other party did not do anything to destroy the Tao of karma, they would not interfere. The majestic group of monks went to the Kunlun Mountains, but in the end they got such a result. This made the hearts of many sects in the divine land sink. Their hopes were now pinned on the mighty figures of the Buddhist sects who had achieved the golden body realm other than Dade and Daning, especially the only surviving supreme elder of the Great Lane Monastery in the past, Zen Master Zhi Heng, who was at the third level of the golden body realm. Since Zen Master Zhi Heng broke out of the encirclement in the past, there was little news about him. The last time anyone saw him was more than 10 years ago in the vast thousand worlds. Someone caught a glimpse of this Buddhist elder in the void battlefield. Since then, there was no news of him. Those who knew about Monk Dekong also pinned their hopes on Monk Dekong. After all, he was an outstanding figure among the senior monks of the degeneration. In fact, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou was also paying attention to Monk Dekong, who was in seclusion. If he could find the fallacy in Xianmen Tianzong's theory, even if he did not launch it this time, he could show it at a suitable time in the future to give Xianmen Tianzong a heavy blow. Liang Pan's eyes flashed suddenly. In the next moment, he had already personally appeared in the room where Monk Dekong was in seclusion. In front of him was an extremely shocking scene. Monk Dekong sat cross-legged on the ground. Although he looked calm and peaceful, his head was sweating profusely. Above his body, Buddhist light condensed and formed the Tathagata Dharma body. The Dharma body held 2 vajras in its right hand and a bell in its left. The throne was carried by a sang-sang bird with a human body and long horns. The Tathagata Dharma body, which was originally filled with the perfected true meaning of all elements, was now cracking inch by inch. It was like a land that had been in a drought for a long time, or like a broken porcelain. The huge Tathagata Dharma body kept twisting and was on the verge of breaking. Liang Pan was shocked. He stretched out his palm and used his magic power to protect Monk Dekong's Dharma body. However, the breaking of Monk Dekong's Dharma body came from the inside out. It was not broken by someone from the outside. Even Liang Pan, who was in the Tao integration realm, could not suppress it. This was a change caused by Monk Dekong's Zen heart being damaged. It could not be stopped by external forces. Even the Grand Imperial Palace and Great Wheel of Heaven could not suppress it by force. No, impossible. How can there be something that the Tao of karma cannot explain? How can there be something that is neither cause nor effect? If such a thing exists, then the other things. Monk Dekong suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with pain and struggle. Xianmen Tianzong, there must be a problem with your so-called Tao of defying fate. There must be a mistake. Unorthodox Tao of evil. Unorthodox Tao of evil. Liang Pan's face was ghastly pale as he watched Monk Dekong's Dharma body shatter in front of him and turn into flowing light. Dekong's Dharma body shattered, and a windstorm swept through the surroundings. The momentum was about to flatten everything within a radius of 1,000 miles. However, Liang Pan was here, so he naturally would not allow Monk Dekong to destroy his palace. However, Liang Pan, who was protecting his palace, had a rarely seen ugly expression. The helplessness and helplessness he felt just now had caused him the emperor, to be in an extremely bad mood. Furthermore, this was just the beginning. After Buddha's Dharma body shattered, Monk Dekong manifested his golden body. Dense cracks appeared on his golden body, and the once sturdy and indestructible golden body seemed like it would collapse at any time. Chapter 1054. Monk Dekong, who was already severely injured in the Ing Ocean, had almost lost his path of improvement. Now that his Zen heart was damaged and his real Dharma body was broken, there was a high possibility that he could reach the second level of the golden body realm again. Even his golden body was covered in cracks. His current situation was extremely dangerous. However, Liang Pan could do nothing about it and could only watch helplessly. This feeling of helplessness made him feel worse than losing an essence soul expert. Monk Dekong did not have the time to think about whether it was possible for him to condense the real Dharma body again in the future. He was now focused on thinking about the Tao of destiny and the Tao of defying destiny. The cracks on his golden body slowly healed after they cracked, but they immediately cracked again after they healed, and they were even more serious than before. Destiny, defying destiny, neither cause nor effect. No, looking back, there must be a reason in the karma of time. Everything in the world is in karma. But where is the reason? Where is it? Monk Dekong's eyes were bloodshot. They were confused, but they were also filled with anger and ferocity. He roared into the sky, Xianmen Tianzong. Unfortunately, this roar could not alleviate his situation. Instead, an even larger and more terrifying crack appeared on his golden body, as if it was going to split him into two. The news that Monk Dekong's Zen heart was almost broken was covered up by the Great Zhou Empire. However, the monks who joined the Great Zhou Empire all remained silent. This also allowed the other forces to vaguely see some clues, which made them feel complicated. Many people's hearts were heavy. In the end, no Buddhist monk could stand out to correct and refute Xianmen Tianzong. Did this prove that Xianmen Tianzong was actually correct? Has the Buddhist sect really weakened? Is there no one who can come out? In West Hill City, Monarch Rosen Shi Zhongmao frowned, and his tone was slightly anxious. Although that was what he said, deep in his heart, he could not stop doubting, is Xianmen Tianzong's Dharma really that powerful? Cultivators have powerful magical powers. Could it be that their understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth is also superior? Qin Emperor Stonefeather was silent. Beneath the flat imperial hat, his expression was dark and gloomy, unreadable. Only a complicated light flickered in his eyes. Prince Naming Shi Zongtong, Prince Onliang Shi Zongyue, Prince Jingfang Shi Lin, and all of the higher-ups of the Great Qin dynasty did not say anything. At this moment, they were all doing the same thing, and that was to constantly scrutinize their own 5 Emperor True Dragon secretaries. He examined it over and over again, examining it from different angles. He screened himself and repeatedly searched for his own orthodoxy to see if there were any mistakes or mistakes. If the loophole he found was a fundamental problem, it would also have an impact on the cultivator's Tao heart, but the situation would be much milder than if it was discovered by an outsider. Shi Zimao looked at Shi Zhengyue, Shi Lin, and the others, and said in a deep voice, "Don't linger on the minor details. Examine yourselves from the root." He was doing the same thing himself. Even if there were loopholes in the branches, it would not shake the cultivator's Tao heart. In fact, every Tao technique would be discovered over a long period of time. The greater the force, the more top Tao techniques, the more it would be like this. Any top Tao technique would be carefully studied by generations of cultivators, constantly eliminating the impurities and leaving behind the essence, and thus constantly perfected and sublimated. For Tao techniques, the exploration of the myriad great Tao of heaven and earth, and the continuous improvement of Tao techniques. This was also the path that must be taken. But if the foundation of a Tao technique was shaken, it would be like the foundation of a building had a problem, and the entire building would be in danger of collapsing. Hearing Shi Zongmao's words, Shi Zongyue, and the others nodded without saying a word. At this moment, Qin Emperor Stonefeather suddenly stood up and said slowly, "Let's go to the ancient sky dragon domain." Shi Zongmao, Shi Zongtong, Shi Zongyue, and the others nodded in unison. Stonefeather directly raised his hand and shot out a talisman in the main hall, which shone brightly in midair and soon turned into a door of light, from which a large amount of red light seeped out. A group of primordial spirit experts of the Great Qin dynasty stepped into it together. The same thing was happening in many places on the Divine Land. Thunder Mountain Range, Purple Firmament Peak, Purple Firmament Path. The top of the mountain was shrouded in thick thunderclouds that did not disperse for thousands of years. Only lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, rising and falling in the thick clouds. At the top of the mountain, in the main hall of the Purple Firmament Path, in the Heavenly Thunder Palace, the current sect master of Purple Firmament Path, Tao Master Thundercloud, was silent. Sitting below him was an old man, his senior brother, Tao Master Blue Thunder. The two brothers faced each other in silence. After a long time, Tao Master Blue Thunder broke the silence. Our sect's 9 heavens divine thunder great Tao has always been incomplete. Tao Master Thundercloud's voice was like rolling thunder. Incomplete does not mean that the Tao technique inheritance of the ancient Hondu patriarch is wrong. Tao Master Blue Thunder smiled bitterly. The problem is that it is incomplete. We want to establish the foundation from the foundation, so it is inevitable that there will be omissions. The ancient Hondu patriarch they were talking about was a powerful individual cultivator in ancient times, known as the Thunder Emperor. Although he was an individual cultivator, he was famous and influential in ancient times. Not to mention anything else, in the history of the human clan cultivation world, only Tai Huang could be compared to him in terms of thunder method. Purple Firmament Path was founded by Tao Master Purple Firmament, the eldest disciple of the Thunder Emperor. Tao Master Purple Firmament established the sect and founded the current Purple Firmament Path. However, including Tao Master Purple Firmament himself, the Purple Firmament Path had always worshipped the Thunder Emperor as the original ancestor. Tao Master Thundercloud fell into silence after hearing this. After a long time, he said softly, "You and I should think about it carefully." Tao Master Blue Thunder sighed. "That's the only way." They looked to the west, in the direction of Kunlun Mountain. At this moment, their gazes were filled with complicated feelings. Yearning, awe, respect, fear, dread. All kinds of emotions were contained. Northern Militant Royal Court, Celerita's Sword Sect, Thunderbolt Sword Sect, and other large forces that were originally friendly with Xianmin Tianzong were all shrouded in the same dark clouds at this moment. The other sects were even more depressed. A few people even went to White Cloud Mountain, hoping to know the exact attitude of Taishu Temple on this matter. Many of the monks who went to Kunlun Mountain, some stayed to continue to comprehend the Tao and wanted to argue with Xianmin Tianzong, while others couldn't bear the burden and fled Kunlun Mountain in a hurry. After contacting these people and learning about the specific news, the other forces were even more complicated because they could vaguely feel that Xianmin Tianzong was not speaking without a goal. The monks couldn't refute it not because their cultivation level was not high enough, but because the truth of Xianmin Tianzong had really shaken the foundation of the Buddhist concept of cause and effect. This was especially so for those experts who already had an understanding of the Buddhist principles. In the Mountain Gate of Reincarnation sect, Azura Tao Master Mo Shaw, Heaven Temple Tao Master Shin Chifeng, and Hell Tao Master, and the others all had complicated expressions. I'm afraid Xianmin Tianzong's point of view is right. Shin Chifeng sighed and said, "Cause and effect are not the only thing. There are other things besides fate. Fortunately, we're not like the Buddhist cultivators who see cause and effect as the only thing. Otherwise, our Taoist heart would be damaged or even broken." He sighed. The Buddhist sect can't complain about losing in this sparring session. Now it seems that the people of the celestial sect of Xianmin, in addition to being sharp and fierce in fights, also have an extremely deep understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Their accumulation is deep, and their understanding is thorough. They are far from as shallow as a new sect. This kind of Xianmen Tianzong is the scary one because it is full of potential. There will not be a situation of 3 generations of decline because of a temporary shortage of talents. As long as they can resist the external pressure, a few outstanding people will be able to rush to the peak again. Mo, Shilaw, and the others did not speak, but they all had expressions of agreement on their faces. In White Cloud Mountain, Yin Yuanjin and Yin Mingyue also looked solemn. The highest elder of Taishu Temple, Yin Yuanjin, clapped his hands and sighed. What a way to defy fate. The problem that the Divine Land has not been able to solve for many years has been solved by Xianmen Tianzong today. For many years, even I have been able to detect the irrationality of the Buddhist concept of cause and effect as the way, but it has always been a question on paper. I have never found a real basis to shake its foundation. I have to say that Xianmen Tianzong has really opened my eyes this time. It is even more shocking than what happened in Mount Shu. Yin Mingyue said slowly, the problem is that it is so shocking that it almost disperses the hearts of the people. The two of them also had mixed feelings. Proving that the celestial sect of Xianmen was correct meant that it proved the power of the celestial sect of Xianmen, but it also meant that all of this would cause the common fear of all the forces in the vast land of the Divine Land. Overall, Xianmen Tianzong lost more than they gained this time. Their Taoism is indeed powerful. It is the same whether we know it or not. But in this way, they will easily be isolated, and it will easily cause everyone to be afraid and even hostile. Yin Yinjin said silently, the situation is very delicate now. For Xianmen Tianzong, the best situation is that the others have alienated and guarded against them. But in the worst situation, they may even become the enemy of the whole world. A woman with a cold face appeared beside Yin Yuanjin and Yin Mingyue. It was the highest elder Yu Yuan. She said coldly, if the Big Lane Temple had not been destroyed, it might not have been a group of monks going to Kunlun Mountain to discuss Taoism, but all the Buddhas, Jedi, and Arhats would have gone to Yujing Mountain together. Even if the news did not spread, Xianmen Tianzong has lost Zen Master Dade this time and suffered greatly. Yu Yuan shook his head and said, the master of Xianmen Tianzong is boundless and unscrupulous. It is like a double-edged sword, and now he has finally hurt himself. He should reflect on himself and reflect on what he has done in the past. Otherwise, he will hurt others and himself. As they were talking, Yu Yuan, Yin Yuanjin, and Yin Mingyue were suddenly stunned. Their eyes passed through the void and looked in the direction of Kunlun Mountain. There, between the peaks of Kunlun, there was suddenly an infinite light rushing into the sky and shining in all directions. Chapter 1055. Kunlun Mountain suddenly shone brightly. Tao Master Yin, Yin Yuanjin, and Yin Mingyue could not see clearly as they were in White Cloud Mountain. But soon, a round mirror-like shadow appeared above their heads. How Yin Mirror, Lord Yu Yuan, and the others looked back at the mirror light. Under the mirror light, Yin Namlai and Lin Daohan stood together on the peak of Baiyun Mountain. Yin Namlai adjusted the light of the Haoyin mirror and aimed it at the distant Kunlun mountain range. An image gradually appeared in the light. When everyone saw the content, they held their breath. In the middle of the Kunlun Mountains, the cloud peak mirror lake of the celestial sect of wonders sat there quietly. However, there was no sign of the Yujing Mountain. On a mountain peak not far from the cloud peak, light shone in all directions. The light was neither hot nor warm. It was extremely pure, without the slightest warmth or heat. It was a vast expanse of whiteness. There was nothing but light. Under the light, ordinary people could not even open their eyes, let alone see what was inside. But this was not a problem for the people of Taishu Temple who were observing through the Haoyin mirror. They could clearly see an old monk in a white robe sitting cross-legged on the peak of the mountain in the center of the light. His body seemed to be plated with a layer of golden brilliance, like a gilded Buddha statue. It was Monk Dade. His golden body still had horrifying cracks. However, at this moment, the cracks were continuously healing. Monk Master Dade's golden body was once again perfect and flawless. Monk Dade opened his eyes. His expression was peaceful and joyful, without the slightest confusion or struggle. Instead, he revealed a sense of clarity that was far greater than before. It was as if he had seen through layers of fog, and his soul was pure. At this moment, although Monk Dade was only at the first level of the golden body realm, and even the cracks on his golden body could not be completely healed, his wisdom, enlightenment, and the true meaning of freedom and liberation were even stronger than when he was at the second level of the golden body realm. Good. Monk Dade smiled and chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. I have experienced countless catastrophes, and there is no obstacle in the 10 Directions Kingdom. Immeasurable light, immeasurable longevity, illuminate the world. With immeasurable light, I will save the people of the world. All will attain great wisdom and great freedom. Excellent, excellent. Amidst the chanting of Buddha, all the cracks on Monk Dafu's golden body disappeared, becoming pure and flawless. The golden Buddha's light was not overbearing nor dazzling, but unusually gentle, filled with the realm of freedom of the mighty figures of Buddhism. His golden body was pure and clear without the slightest impurity. It was like colored glass, bright, solid, condensed, and strong. Outside the golden body, the vast expanse of white light became increasingly dazzling and eye-catching. In this boundless light, the vague figure of a huge Buddha gradually appeared. The Buddha's body was golden and emitted a red radiance. He sat on a lotus and a full moon, and the throne beneath him was carried by 8 peacocks. He held a lotus in his right hand and a bell in his left. It was the image of Amitabha Tathagata, in the eyes of Yin Nanlai and the rest. This scene was no less than a sudden clap of thunder. He's going to reconstruct Tathagata's Dharmakaya. It was not impossible for Monk Dafu to reconstruct Tathagata's Dharmakaya, but the possibility was very small, especially when his Dharmakaya was shattered and his Zen heart was damaged. If he could not reconstruct his Zen heart, it would already be a great fortune for him to barely maintain his golden body. The scene in front of them showed that Monk Dafu's Zen heart had regained its stability. It was clear and bright, untainted by dust. Could it be that he found the fallacy of Xianmin Tianzong's theory and once again proved that karma is the way? All laws are empty, but karma is not empty? Yin Mingwei frowned, but it doesn't seem like it. At this moment, the Buddhist disciples on Cloud Peak also ran out of their residences and looked at the bright mountain peak in the distance. Even if the light was so piercing that they could not open their eyes, and even if they tried hard, they could not see the figure in the depths of the light. However, it did not prevent them from distinguishing that this was an eminent monk who cultivated Amitabha Tathagata's Dharmakaya. In the area of Kunlun Mountain, there was no doubt that the only person who had such a cultivation was Monk Dafu, whose Dharmakaya had been shattered and had fallen to the first level of the golden body realm. This raised some hope in their confused and painful state of mind. The group of monks also had the same thoughts as Yin Mingwei. They eagerly hoped that Monk Dafu could prove that Xianmin Tianzong's theory was wrong. They eagerly hoped that Monk Dafu could prove that their great Thunderclap Monastery had been passed down for countless years, that they had spent their entire lives studying, and that the principles that they firmly believed in were correct. Amitabha's light gradually retracted, and Monk Dafu's figure reappeared. Above his head, the Amitabha Tathagata's Dharmakaya, condensed from Buddha's light, emitted dazzling light, illuminating everything in the world. Buddha is merciful. All the monks were overjoyed, but before they could go forward to greet Monk Dafu, the situation changed again. Above the head of Monk Dafu's Amitabha Tathagata's Dharmakaya, Buddha's light suddenly condensed again, gradually forming a huge ball of light. An endless stream of light appeared on Amitabha Tathagata's body, continuously supplying the ball of light, and Tathagata's Dharmakaya itself became faintly discernible. Everyone's eyes widened, and they saw that there seemed to be a pure land in the ball of light. Being in it, it was as if one could obtain bliss, never feeling pain, never suffering. On White Cloud Mountain, Lord Yuan said word by word, pure land of bliss. After the mighty figures of the Buddhist sects condensed Tathagata's Dharmakaya to the second level of the golden body realm, they would cultivate the pure land, turn away worries, purify the 5 accumulations, and achieve Buddha's wisdom. Then they could cultivate to the third level of the golden body realm, which was equivalent to the third level of the primordial spirit realm. Obtaining the pure land was equivalent to obtaining the Tao fruit of the Tao. The pure land obtained by cultivating the Amitabha Tathagata Sutra was called the pure land of karma. The pure land obtained by cultivating the Amitabha Tathagata Sutra was called the pure land of bliss because there was no suffering or suffering in it. The worry transformed by this pure land was greed, and the accumulations purified were thinking accumulations. The wisdom obtained from the transformation of greed was non-discrimination wisdom. It represented that the heart of the cultivator was peaceful and at ease, free from the pain of samsara, and ascended to the pure land of bliss. After reconstructing Tathagata's Dharmakaya, Zen Master Dade didn't stop. He actually started to transform his own worries, purify his thinking accumulations, and achieve non-discrimination wisdom. He wanted to create his own pure land of bliss. Once the pure land was formed, Zen Master Dade successfully advanced to the third level of the golden body realm. Yin Nanlai stared at the center of the pure land in the ball of light. There was a faint light flickering there. That is the Amitabha light, the core of the pure land of bliss. Once this light is formed, the pure land of bliss is formed. Yin Nanlai said slowly, Amitabha light is also the strongest divine power that can be cultivated from the Amitabha Tathagata Sutra. It is far superior to the great enlightenment Zen light, but he didn't continue speaking. It wasn't that he hadn't come into contact with the eminent monks who had cultivated the pure land of bliss. However, even though Zen Master Dade's pure land of ultimate bliss was not completely mastered, the concept within it, compared to his predecessors, was clearly more perfect in reflecting one's true nature. It was more profound and profound. Lin Daohan stared at Zen Master Dade. Even he, who was usually indifferent, was slightly moved at this moment. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem like he found the loophole in Xianmin Tianzong's theory, and from there, he comprehended the Tao of karma and stabilized his Tao heart. It seems like enlightenment. At this moment, Yin Yuanjin, Lord Yin, and Yin Mingyue also arrived at the peak of the mountain. They stood beside Yin Nanlai and his disciple. According to the Buddhists, it's like being hit on the head by someone and being enlightened overnight. Yin Mingyue muttered to herself. Is it also because of Xianmin Tianzong's theory? Not only did he not sink into the sea of suffering, but he also broke through and stood up again. He cleared the obstacles in front of him and obtained great relief and freedom, reaching a higher level. Yin Nanlai nodded and said, It's not impossible, but the possibility is too low. After all, Xianmin Tianzong's discovery has fundamentally shaken the understanding of Buddhist cultivators. Although there can be no construction without destruction, the possibility of reconstruction after destruction is so much smaller than the possibility of complete destruction. It's so small that it's almost negligible. The hope is too small if he only comprehended it on his own. I'm afraid Dade received some advice from the master of Xianmin Gate, which is why he was able to have this opportunity. Yin Yuanjin sighed. That must be the case. That's why Dade purposely reconstructed his Dharma body in front of everyone in Kunlun Mountain and even tried to break through to the Pure Land realm. It was to remind the other Buddhist disciples, and at the same time, to clear Xianmin Tianzong's name and announce it to the world. Otherwise, if he had comprehended it on his own, he could have found a place with no one around to slowly cultivate, or he could have stayed on Yujing Mountain to cultivate. Lord Yuan stared at Monk Dade and shook his head, not saying a word. Master, Martial Uncle Jingyi. Yin Nanlai's heart skipped a beat. He looked back and saw Lord Tai and Shoichi Dashin standing behind them with their eyes closed. Their attention was also focused on the light and shadow presented by the Haotian mirror, and they were both silent. Yin Nanlai, Yin Yuanjin, Lord Yun, and the others also did not speak. They silently looked at Monk Dade in the light and shadow. Above Monk Dade's head, realized Dharma body and the light and shadow of the Pure Land flickered, constantly changing between each other. When the light and shadow of the Pure Land lit up, the realized Dharma body became dim and blurry. When the realized Dharma body became clear, the light and shadow of the Pure Land was no longer bright. When this scene fell into the eyes of the onlookers, those with knowledge knew that this was not a mistake in Monk Dade's cultivation. Instead, his current state of mind was enough to break through to the Pure Land realm, but his accumulation of magic power was still lacking. After all, strictly speaking, according to the time of the vast thousand world, it had only been a few years since Monk Dade had advanced from the first tier of the Golden Body realm to the second tier. Chapter 1056. As the purple chi descended, Monk Dade's spirit was instantly lifted. At his current realm, spiritual chi was drawn from the world, and he rarely ran out of energy. However, there were exceptions to everything. Although the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was almost inexhaustible, according to the cultivator's own magical power, the efficiency and frequency of drawing and converting the spiritual chi of heaven and earth would differ. In a certain period of time, the consumption of magical power exceeded the speed of absorbing and converting the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Then, even a primordial divinity cultivator would feel exhausted. When a cultivator was breaking through to the next realm, he needed to accumulate enough magical power. Cultivating different Taoist techniques required different amounts of magical power. Monk Dade's current situation was that the consumption of magical power to cultivate the Pure Land exceeded the current limit of his Tathagata physique. But when this streak of purple energy descended, Zen Master Dade immediately felt that everything was greatly different. It was not that Lin Feng directly poured mana into his body, but rather that under the envelopment of the purple energy, the efficiency and frequency of Zen Master Dade converting and absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth greatly increased. To be able to do this, not only did Lin Feng's magical power have to be strong enough, but he also had to have a deep understanding of the Buddhist Dharma. Seeing this scene, Yin Nanlai, Yin Yuanjin, and the others could all confirm that Lin Feng definitely played a major role in Monk Dade being able to rise from the ashes. He was most likely the one who gave the warning and reminded Monk Dade. As expected, Monk Dade, who was shrouded by the purple chi, put his palms together and said, "Previously, thanks to sect master's guidance, this old monk understood karma, fate, and defying fate. Only then could I transcend the sea of bitterness. Now, I have to trouble sect master again. This old monk is truly ashamed." In the void, Lin Feng's indifferent voice rang out, "Master, you are too courteous. Studying Zen and discussing Tao, distinguishing the truth is a common thing. Today, Master, you have attained the Pure Land and ascended to the ultimate bliss. This is a happy event. I will do my best to congratulate you." Lin Feng's voice was flat. Only Zen Master Dade could hear it. Zen Master Dade's voice didn't sound loud, but it traveled far. The Buddhist disciples on the cloud peak were all stunned. They stared blankly at the Pure Land above Zen Master Dade's head, which was becoming clearer and clearer. For a moment, they were speechless. They only felt their minds become even more chaotic. Yuan Xian and Yuan Cheng's eyes were filled with confusion. Did Martial Uncle Dade betray our Buddhist teachings, or were we really wrong? If Uncle Master betrayed Buddhism, how could he reconstruct the Tathagata Dharmakaya and refine the Pure Land realm? Are we really wrong? The group of Buddhist disciples fell into silence. A trace of enlightenment gradually appeared in the eyes of some, while some were even more puzzled. In the Kunlun Mountain, beside the Yunfeng Mirror Lake, the Pure Land of ultimate bliss that was gradually taking shape emitted boundless radiance that illuminated the world. On the White Cloud Mountain, Lord Tai closed his eyes. Silently, he watched the scene in the light and shadow. When he saw this, he raised his hand and tapped lightly. The light and shadow disappeared without a trace. Shoichi Dashin, Yin Nan Lai, and the others didn't object because the result was already predictable. They didn't need to continue watching. For them, when the incident had just happened, their focus wasn't on Xianmin Tianzong losing a return to Void Stage Cultivator. Now, their focus wasn't on whether Xianmin Tianzong would gain another Dao Integration Stage Cultivator. Admittedly, the existence of a Dao Integration Stage Cultivator couldn't be taken lightly. But for Lord Tai and the others, there was something more worthy of attention. After understanding the specific situation and understanding Xianmin Tianzong's interpretation and questioning of the Buddhist Tao of karma, the people of the Taishu Temple actually vaguely agreed with Xianmin Tianzong's point of view. After all, they in the Great Lane Temple had previously discussed the Tao of karma. However, a very important point was that people who could raise questions and find flaws were admirable, but such people were never popular. People who were popular were always able to solve problems after raising them and find flaws after finding them. Although it was good to be able to tell that the other party had embarked on the wrong path and give them a reminder, it wouldn't help them make progress. It might even cause them to fall into chaos and cause them to regress. However, being able to guide people who had embarked on the wrong path back onto the right path and make them walk further and further on the right path was undoubtedly a fundamental change. The previous Xianmin Tianzong was undoubtedly the former, but the current Xianmin Tianzong was the latter. The difference between the two was enormous, and the subsequent effects that it brought would also be completely different. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. The former would arouse the suspicion and fear of other forces. They would be boycotted and isolated. If they weren't careful, they might even fall into a situation where the whole world was their enemy. The latter, on the other hand, would have a huge attraction to other forces and force them to draw closer to them. They would become leaders, commanders, and even guides with transcendent statuses. Of course, they might also be coveted by people with evil intentions. However, that was based on the premise that Xianmin Tianzong's own strength was weak. With Xianmin Tianzong's current strength and status, there was no need to worry about this. Compared to Zen Master Dade's reconstruction of the Dharma body and the cultivation of the Pure Land, these possible subsequent situations were more important to the Taishu Temple. In terms of difficulty and ability requirements, raising a problem and solving a problem were also completely different concepts. Xianmin Tianzong, who could solve a problem, was stronger than Xianmin Tianzong, who could only raise a problem. In addition, the previous situation was that Zen Master Dade, who had worked hard for the sect without complaint, had his Zen heart broken by his own sect, causing his real-eyed Dharma body to shatter. It was inevitable that the other guests and protectors in Xianmin Tianzong would feel disappointed, causing the experts from the outside world who wanted to submit to Xianmin Tianzong to shrink back and have many misgivings. But the current situation was that even if he worked hard and the sect provided all the resources he needed, he would still need a long period of bitter cultivation to have some certainty that he would be able to achieve the third level of the Buddhist Golden Body Realm. After successfully breaking through and establishing, not long after advancing to the second level of the Golden Body Realm, he would attack the third level of the Golden Body Realm. Even if Lin Feng didn't help him today, and Zen Master Dade failed to break through the realm by himself, it was still a precious treasure. In the future, when he accumulated enough, there was also a huge hope of advancing to the third level of the Golden Body Realm. The power of an example was limitless, whether it was a positive or negative example. After such an incident, the attraction of Xianmin Tianzong, whether it was to the rogue cultivators or to the other great powers in the Divine Land, would definitely rise to a huge level. And Xianmin Tianzong's own internal cohesion would also increase further. Just like when the matter had just fermented, the invisible potential losses or gains were much greater than the immediate losses or gains. As for the thoughts of the experts of the other forces, there was no need for the Supreme, One Tao Lord, and the others to guess. Even with Lin Feng's help, Zen Master Dade took a long time to refine the Pure Land this time. and the big shots of the various forces who received the news all came to the area of Kunlun Mountain one after another. They stopped in the outer area and watched the pure land of bliss gradually take shape with complicated feelings. At this time, if anyone were to launch an attack, Zen Master Dade would most likely waste all his previous efforts and even be injured. But in the boundary of Kunlun Mountain, as long as they saw the purple gas that enveloped Zen Master Dade, no one would have such thoughts. That was purely looking for trouble for themselves. Silently stood in the void, the great Qin dynasty's Rose Sun monarch, Shi Zhongmao, looked at Zen Master Dade expressionlessly, but his eyes were constantly flickering with flowing lights. He was carefully sensing and observing the difference between Zen Master Dade's pure land of bliss and Amiba light, and the other Buddhist golden body third-tier eminent monks who had cultivated the pure land of bliss in his memory. The more he sensed, the more shocked Shi Zhongmao was. Not to say how much more powerful it is, the key is that the concept is more perfect, free, and true. The strength of divine arts and magic power, the same realm, and the same orthodoxy, different people would have differences. But the difference in the concept of the principle meant that there was a completely different change in the foundation of the Tao. At this point, how could Shi Zhongmao still not understand that Zen Master Dade, who had successfully comprehended the principle and recognized himself, was truly breaking through and establishing, and taking a step further and not simply stabilizing his Zen heart and restoring his original cultivation? I heard that he had previously said that it was thanks to the guidance of the master of Xianmen that he was able to understand karma, fate, and defying fate, and finally transcend the sea of bitterness. Shi Zhongmao took a deep breath. Perhaps the reason why he could successfully comprehend the true meaning of the Amiba Light Buddhist Sutra and break through his original bottleneck was mostly because of his exquisite Buddhist cultivation, but it was the master of Xianmen who pointed out the first step that he should take. At this time, Shi Zhongmao's feelings were rather complicated. The help that Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong had given to Zen Master Dade was not to give him advice on the specific details, to help him break through the bottleneck, or to suddenly encounter obstacles in his cultivation. Instead, it was to fundamentally correct the original deviation for Buddhism, changing the inherent concept so that the bottleneck that should have been encountered no longer existed, and the obstacles that should have been encountered disappeared from the beginning. Of course, the mystery of the Great Way was unpredictable. Even the current Buddhist Dharma did not necessarily mean that it would be able to guide the cultivator to completely transcend the boundless sea of bitterness and reach the shore. But at least the chance was greater than before. Perhaps this increase in hope was not great, but the Buddhist Tao of karma was one of the most profound great Taos in the world. Even if it was just a little bit of improvement, it was still very precious. It was an improvement that many people might not be able to achieve even if they worked hard for their entire lives. In addition to Shi Zhongmao, the Northern Militant Royal Court's First Chanyu, Purple Cloud Taoist Sect's Sect Master Thundercloud, Thunderbolt Sword Sect's Sect Master Thunderbolt, and even the Heavenly Sword Sect's Sect Master Tongtian, Songhai Sword Sect's Sect Master Songhai, and the current Reincarnation Sect's Sect Master Azura, Mo, Shiluo, and other experts were standing in the void above the mountains with complicated expressions. The pressure of a group of primordial soul experts was enough to change the color of heaven and earth. But at this moment, in the Kunlun mountain range, everyone involuntarily restrained their own aura. Silently, they looked at the purple chi that enveloped Zen Master Dade. They looked at the source of the purple chi, the void that was difficult to detect. Although they could not see it, they knew that the purple-clothed young man who caused such a huge wave in the divine land was there. Everyone could not help but think, the way of karma is already one of the most profound great ways in the world, but that person can still give advice. Then the others. Chapter 1057. Just like the monks who left the Kunlun mountain, the details of what had happened before were spread all over the world. Then, the process of Buddhist monk Dade remodeling the infinite light Buddha body and trying to break through the third level of the golden body realm, was spread all over the divine land. Some people who were not there also knew what had happened before through various channels. The Wilderness Sword sect was located at the barren peak in the southern foothills of the Great Transverse Mountain. In the main hall of the sect at the top of the mountain, Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness looked calm, while the elders of the Wilderness Sword sect in front of him all looked gloomy. An elder looked at Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness and said, "Master." Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness turned around and asked calmly, "What?" That elder was speechless, and the others were also speechless for a while, but their hearts were extremely heavy. "I know what you're worried about," Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness said silently, "but now it's beyond our control. We can only wait and see." An elder said in a deep voice, "Sovereign, the actions of the celestial sect of Xianmen are too overbearing. The Great Lane Temple has already been destroyed, and there are only survivors left. If the same thing were to happen to our sect, the result would be unimaginable. The many years of foundation passed down by the ancestors of the Great Desolate Sword Venerable might even be destroyed." That's right, that's right." The others nodded in agreement, their faces showing fear and dread. Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness still looked calm. He said lightly, "If Xianmen Tianzong really wanted to destroy the orthodoxy of our Wilderness Sword sect, it wouldn't be so troublesome. The master of Xian's sect doesn't need to do it himself. Any one of the 4 heroes of Xian's sect under his command can destroy our barren peak." Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness's tone was calm, but no one present was dissatisfied. It was because Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness was stating an accurate fact. Although it sounded like he was undermining their prestige, when the gap between the two sides was large to a certain extent, they had to accept it calmly. What's more, with the strength that Xianmen Tianzong showed today, what Sword Venerable of the Great Wilderness said was not shameful. The honorable swordsman of the Great Wilderness glanced at the group of elders in the sect and said slowly, "If we were to shake the foundation of the Great Desolation sword technique of our sect, it would completely destroy our orthodoxy. If we were to destroy it, there might be people like the Great Lane Temple who managed to escape and pass on the sword principles of our sect. If the celestial sect of 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 the celestial sect," the honorable swordsman of the Great Wilderness said faintly, "the situation in the divine land is no longer the same as it was 10 years ago in the vast thousand domains, before the Battle of West Hill. It is unknown whether the Taishu Temple will protect our sect. Even if they want to protect us, it's hard to say if they can protect us against Xianmen Tianzong. Thus, the current situation is not something that we can control. Let's just wait and see. Based on the development of the situation, Xianmen Tianzong might not have intentionally provoked and humiliated the Buddhist sect." An elder said worriedly, "Even if Xianmen Tianzong's action this time was unintentional, who knows if his next unintentional mistake will fall on us?" He looked at Swordmaster of the Great Wilderness and said, "Over the years, our sect has had a lot of communication with Xianmen Tianzong on the path of refining weapons, so that he knows some of the contents of the Great Desolation Sword Book. Of course, we have also gained a lot of benefits. However, the master of Xianmen's sect is a pedantic person. No one can be sure whether he can deduce the complete orthodoxy of our sect from the clues. What if Xianmen Tianzong's Taoism was much more profound than theirs? It was still uncertain whether he would take a fancy to their Great Desolation Sword Book. However, they were afraid that Lin Feng and his disciple would deal with the Great Desolation Sword Book like the Buddhist incantation." Swordmaster of the Great Wilderness frowned. When he was about to speak, he suddenly thought of something. He pondered for a moment. After a while, his calm face gradually revealed a surprised expression. The elders of the Wilderness Sword sect looked at each other. Their hearts were beating fast, and they looked at their sect master with surprise and uncertainty. I just got the news that the guest elder of Xianmen Tianzong, Monk Dade, has shown great wisdom on Kunlun Mountain and rebuilt the Buddha's Dharma body in a short period of time. Sword Master of the Great Wilderness came to his senses and looked at his disciples. Not only that, but he has also made a further impact on the third level of the Buddhist Golden Body realm. Under the protection of the master of Xianmen sect, he has cultivated the Elysium Pure Land. What? Everyone stood up from their seats in shock. Even though they had lived for thousands of years, they could not stay calm at this moment. They all looked at Sword Master of the Great Wilderness in shock. An elder hurriedly asked, "Sect Master, did Monk Dade find the fallacy of Xianmen Tianzong's theory and thus restabilize his Zen heart and restore his cultivation?" If that's the case, why would the master of Xianmen's sect personally protect him and help him break through the realm? Even if there were people who refuted him, there were others who supported his point of view. That's not necessarily true. The master of the celestial sect has always been generous to his own people. There is nothing to say about his magnanimity. Even if Zen Master Dade made him or his disciples lose some face, he would most likely not care about it. Sword Master of the Great Wilderness shook his head. According to the news from the master of Xianmen sect, Monk Dade's Dharma cultivation is not simply restored. Instead, he has made further progress after breaking through. That's from the advice of the master of Xianmen's sect. It's like a blow to the head that made Monk Dade have an epiphany and achieve the Elysium Pure Land. I'm afraid it's better than that of his Buddhist predecessors. Hearing this, everyone sat back in their chairs in a daze. They were a little absent-minded for a while. After a while, someone suddenly looked at Sword Master of the Great Wilderness. Sect Master, Sword Master of the Great Wilderness looked at that elder. The elder was trying hard to calm down and make his expression as calm as possible, but he could still easily see the passion hidden deep in the elder's eyes. The others also sensed the blazing heat, which made their originally complicated feelings instantly become lively. At this moment, the others had already understood what the elder was thinking about. However, everyone, including Sword Master of the Great Wilderness, was still hesitant and had many concerns. Similar scenes were happening in almost every place in the Divine Land. Everything was developing according to the expectations of Taishu Temple. However, people in Taishu Temple could not feel happy. It was also developing according to expectations. However, compared with the time before Monk Dade reconstructed his Dharma body and achieved the Pure Land, the situation was completely reversed. At this moment, the situation in the Divine Land had also become very delicate. Although the other superpowers were a little hesitant, they were, after all, the superpowers that had been passed down for many years. They had their own pride and persistence. It was difficult for them to make up their minds to go to Kunlun Mountain directly. Xianmen Tianzong had collected a lot of Dharma. There were objective factors. The identity of Monk Dade was also relatively special. As for the other orthodoxies, it was unknown whether Lin Feng and his disciple would use the same method to deal with them. Moreover, it had to be said that Taishu Temple was still standing. The Great Way of Taishu was still famous. This also caused many sects to have doubts. Currently, the situation between the two superpowers in the Divine Land was not completely clear. However, in the eyes of those who were observant, the undercurrent was surging. This had already caused them to be cautious. However, the delicate situation had become very fragile. If something similar were to happen in the future, it would very likely cause the superpowers to make a decision. After all, what Xianmen Tianzong could offer was no longer just pure benefits. The value was immeasurable. In the palace of Tianjing City, the capital of the great Zhou dynasty, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou's expression was solemn and gloomy. In the quiet room, the golden body of Monk Dakong was full of cracks. It was mottled and messy. It was full of a sense of ruin. This was the result of Liang Pan trying his best to suppress it. Otherwise, the golden body of Monk Dakong would have been completely shattered. Liang Pan said slowly, "Master, contact your senior, Zen Master Ning." Then, try to get specific guidance from Zen Master Dada about the master of Xianmin. Otherwise, your situation is worrying. The monk Dakong looked up at him. His eyes were filled with confusion. After a long while, his eyes regained focus. He smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid it's too late. You still have a chance to make a comeback. Don't give up hope. The great Zhou dynasty, and I will provide you with all kinds of resources," Liang Pan said. The monk Dakong nodded with difficulty. I'll try." After leaving the quiet room of the monk Dakong, Liang Pan returned to the main palace hall. He sat on the dragon throne and frowned. Suddenly, a ball of light appeared in front of him. In the light, Zhu Hongwu's figure could be seen. Zhu Hongwu bowed and said, "Your humble servant greets your majesty." "Greetings, your majesty." Liang Pan's frown deepened. "Hongwu, focus on your cultivation. Strive to reach the unification realm as soon as possible. Don't get distracted." Silently, Zhu Hongwu said, "I suddenly felt uneasy when I was cultivating. That's why I came to see your majesty." Hearing this, Liang Pan fell silent. Slowly, Zhu Hongwu said, "When I was trying to figure out the Buddhist Tao of karma, I suddenly felt the Tao of heaven and earth shaking. It seemed like there was some special change. I think it has something to do with the Tao of karma. I wonder if your majesty has any news about it?" It seems like after Zen Master Da had an epiphany, he understood the truth and had a clear Zen heart. However, he also found some clues in the Tao of karma. That's why you, Hongwu, were also affected. Liang Pan shook his head and told Zhu Hongwu everything that had happened. However, he still did not mention Xianmin Tianzong's explanation of the Tao of karma. He looked at Zhu Hongwu and said, "I have already ordered Zen Master Dakong to find a way to obtain Xianmin Tianzong's complete explanation of the Tao of karma, from his doubts to his solution. Hongwu, please wait patiently." Zhu Hongwu's eyes flickered. After a long time, he said, "Please forgive me, your majesty. I want to hear Xianmin Tianzong's explanation and doubts about the Tao of karma." As for how the master of the celestial sect will enlighten Zen Master Dada, there's no hurry. Hearing this, Liang Pan was not surprised at all. However, his expression became even more gloomy. He did not tell Zhu Hongwu about this before, because he wanted to avoid such a situation. However, Zhu Hongwu had sensed the problem because of his own cultivation. If he did not solve this problem, Zhu Hongwu would always feel uneasy when he went into seclusion. If he wanted to return to the void and unification realm, he would not be able to succeed. It would only be a waste of time. If he could comprehend the truth on his own, he would be able to return to the void and unification realm easily. He was different from Zen Master Dada. In the past, he had suffered too many losses at the hands of Lin Feng and had never been able to get back at him. With his temperament and martial intent, if he were to pass the test under Lin Feng's guidance this time, there would be endless troubles in the future. It would create a mental barrier, and he would not be able to advance to the unification realm. Even though he knew that there was a wall in front of him, Zhu Hongwu had to use his own strength to break through it. There was no way out. Chapter 1058. Zhu Hongwu looked at Liang Pan. "Your subject's Tao heart, martial artists will, fist technique, and fist intent are not based on the Buddhist Dharma. As for the Buddhist Dharma's Tao of karma, is only for my own use. Shaking the Tao of karma does not mean that it can shake your subject's martial Tao. They, Danning, and Dakong Zen hearts were broken, but it doesn't mean my Taoist heart will be broken. Your Majesty, please judge." Liang Pan looked worried. "Hongwu, I know that you're not based on Buddhism, but Xianmin Tianzong did not deny the karma path." Zhu Hongwu frowned. "Oh, then how did he shake the Zen hearts of Dakong and the others?" Liang Pan stared at him for a while and finally said, "Xianmin Tianzong proved that not everything is empty, but karma is." Zhu Hongwu said, "This theory is not new." Liang Pan said word by word, "The key lies in the method Xianmin Tianzong used to prove it." Zhu Hongwu cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, please explain." In the explanation of the celestial sect of Xianmin, Everything in the world has an existence that is neither cause nor effect. There is no antecedent cause or consequence. There is no way to deduce or reverse it. Liang Pan finally said, "There is no way to understand the past and future of its existence through cause and effect." Hearing this, Zhu Hongwu frowned and clenched his fists by his side. "What evidence do they have?" Liang Pan waved his hand and sent out a light shadow. Zhu Hongwu stared at the light shadow, and his face darkened. In the end, his face was as dark as water. There is such a thing. In this case, there is no way to use the karma path to understand the life force and fate of everyone. There will be uncontrollable and unexpected things. Such a thing really exists. Zhu Hongwu closed his eyes. Can this karma path be controlled? How? Can I understand the past, present, and future of all living beings if I understand the karma path and the karma path together? Liang Pan looked at Zhu Hongwu and sighed in his heart. What he was worried about had happened. To Zhu Hongwu, the Buddhist Dharma's Tao of karma was not the foundation of his life. He also did not believe that the Tao of karma was the supreme Tao in the world and that karma could contain everything. However, Zhu Hongwu's martial Tao was indeed based on the Tao of karma and the Tao of heaven, which were extremely compatible with each other as the foundation. The Tao of karma explained the principles of all things, while the great heavenly Taos carried the will of all the Taos in the world. When the two of them combined, they fused with the domineering concept in the Taiwan scripture. Finally, they fused together to become the heavenly Tao in all living beings, turning the wheel of life, death, and fate. The main reason why Zhu Hongwu valued the Tao of karma was because he was well-versed in karma. He could understand the three lives of all living beings, past, present, and future, and from there, he could control the lives of all living beings. Unlike Buddhist cultivators, Zhu Hongwu's situation was a fusion of half Tao and half technique. On one hand, he firmly believed that karma could explain all principles, and on the other hand, he used this Tao as a tool to help him perfect his martial arts fist intent. The problem now was that when Zhu Hongwu discovered that there were other things that the Tao of karma couldn't explain, he couldn't help but have stronger doubts. How could such a Tao of karma help him perfect his martial Tao and achieve his original goal? It was also a little superficial, but it eventually spread to the whole body. Before he understood the crux of it, Zhu Hongwu couldn't convince himself to incorporate the Tao of karma into his martial Tao. His martial Tao pursued the extreme realm. In a sense, it was the pursuit of perfection. Before he understood the relationship and mystery between fate-defying and fate, it would be very difficult for him to continue cultivating his martial Tao. It wasn't impossible for him to continue cultivating, but this matter would be like a thorn in his heart, and he would always worry about it. Under such circumstances, even if he had earth-shattering power and shocking talent, it would be difficult for him to return to the void and merge with the Tao. A similar situation was somewhat similar to how he had been stuck in the primordial spirit incarnation realm because of Meng Bingyun, and it was difficult for him to refine his spirit to return to the void. If the Tao of karma doesn't work, then what kind of Tao can understand all things and all things? Zhu Hongwu stood where he was, and his aura vaguely became a little violent. Then it calmed down, then became violent again, and then calmed down again. This cycle repeated endlessly. This lasted for a long time, and Liang Pan didn't say a word. He just looked at his loyal subject calmly. After a long time, Zhu Hongwu finally calmed down completely. He knelt before Liang Pan and said, "I'm guilty. Although I can't understand it at the moment, it has pointed out a direction for me. In the process of cultivating the Tao of karma, I once had some doubts. Now, I verified my guess in the past, but his eyes were still closed tightly, and his hands were clenched in a fist like a statue. If I want to completely understand the truth, I'm afraid it won't be done in a short period of time. I need a long time to think about it, and I'm afraid I won't be able to return to the void and merge with the Tao in the expected time. I've messed up Your Majesty's plans. I beg Your Majesty's forgiveness." Liang Pan sighed. It doesn't matter if you refine your spirit and return to the void a little later. I only hope that this matter won't affect your Tao heart, Hongwu. Zhu Hongwu remained silent and didn't answer. He only kowtowed on the ground. Although he didn't speak, Liang Pan knew what he was thinking. This wasn't the first time they had suffered at the hands of Lin Feng. Especially this time, Zhu Hongwu was the one who took the initiative to hit the wall. If he directly broke the wall, it would be a whole new world from now on. Not only would Zhu Hongwu successfully return to the void and merge with the Tao, but his dermic powers would also reach a new level. However, time waited for no man. If Zhu Hongwu could understand it in a short period of time, everything would be fine. However, if he took too long, he would suffer from the pressure of the external environment. Not only would he delay things, but Zhu Hongwu would also feel unnecessary pressure in his heart. It was an opportunity to turn pressure into motivation. But if he couldn't resolve it, the obstacles in his heart would only become heavier and heavier, and he would fall into a vicious cycle. This time, he took the initiative to hit the wall, which was equivalent to a failure. He didn't break the wall, and instead, he hit himself until his head bled again. But for Zhu Hongwu, he had no choice but to hit the wall. If he broke it, there was still a chance, but if he didn't, there would be no chance at all. Based on Zhu Hongwu's personality, he had to face difficulties head-on. Because of Liang Pan's imperial order, he had already tried his best to suppress his drive. If he stagnated in his cultivation because of Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong, it would instead become an obstacle to his cultivation. In particular, according to the previous news, the people who first raised concrete evidence to doubt the Tao of Karma were Lin Feng's disciples, including Zhu Yi. This was a dilemma for Zhu Hongwu. Since he couldn't retreat, he might as well face difficulties head-on. If there was a wall in front of him, he would use his own strength to break it, and naturally, there would be no obstruction. This was also another manifestation of his martial will. Martial experts had to do their best to carry out their martial will. Suppressing oneself was harmful, and not only could one not improve, but it would also cause one to regress. This was the reason why Liang Pan knew that the situation wasn't optimistic, but in the end, he still allowed Zhu Hongwu to try. Once again tasting this feeling of helplessness and powerlessness, Liang Pan was also extremely depressed and humiliated, but he could only grit his teeth and swallow it. It was just that things didn't go as one wished. This time, the result of facing difficulties head-on made Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu full of bitterness. Zhu Hongwu was confident in himself, but his judgment was very accurate. After thinking for a moment, he had already seen that if he wanted to rely on himself to solve Xianmin Tianzong's doubts about the Tao of Karma, he couldn't accomplish it in a short period of time. Moreover, in the end, he might have to place his hopes on Monk de Kong to obtain the essence of Monk de Discomprehension. And this was even more unacceptable for Zhu Hongwu, because of the obstacles in his heart, not only was it not beneficial, but it was also harmful. If it really came to that step, Zhu Hongwu was more likely to choose to directly cut off his wrists and completely abandon the Tao of Karma, and start anew to polish his martial Tao. But in that case, the day of his void return and Tao integration would be even more unpredictable, and it might even cause a blow to his Tao heart and confidence. Personality determined fate. This saying might not necessarily be applicable at all times, but at this moment, it was vividly reflected on Zhu Hongwu. The ruler and the minister of the great Zhou dynasty, facing each other, were speechless. After a long while, they squeezed out 4 words from between their teeth: Xian, gate, heaven, sect. Lin Feng and his disciples, who had unintentionally dug a big hole and sent Zhu Hongwu into a dilemma, were now on Yujing Mountain, sitting together on the bamboo chairs on the 3rd floor of the scripture depository. Lin Feng looked at Wang Lin with a smile. Very good. Little Lin, you have comprehended the yin and yang unity scripture, and you have already seen the first signs of Kung Fu. Wang Lin answered, It's all thanks to Master's guidance. Not only did it awaken Monk de Da, it also made me understand many truths in my heart, and I have a better understanding of the mysterious Tao of heaven and earth. Lin Feng waved his hand, Master leads the way, but cultivation depends on the individual. This is the result of your own hard work, and I am very happy for you." He looked at Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and Shi Tianhao, and smiled. "The three of you are also very good. You have gradually found your future direction. Focus on cultivation and work hard." Xiao Yin and the other two nodded with a smile. "We will follow Master's teachings. We will definitely cultivate diligently." The matter this time around is truly unexpected. However, the effects of this matter are truly far-reaching. After bidding farewell to his disciples, Lin Feng thought with some mischief in his heart. "Tistiske. After all, it's two different worlds, but I wonder if the original knowledge can still be used. I really don't know if I come up with the uncertainty principle or delay the experiment. Will the people of this world who believe in the path of cause and effect collapse even more, or will they be able to understand more things? I also don't know if these things can be effective in this great Tianyuan world. When I have free time, I can give it a try. It'll be quite interesting." Lin Feng smiled and shook his head, quickly putting these things behind him, and focused his attention on his own cultivation again. And in the following days, Lin Feng also received good news one after another. For example, after Tang Jun successfully passed the Void Thunder Tribulation, his 10th disciple who reached the nascent soul stage within 50 years appeared. It had not yet been 50 years, and the proportion of people who were in the Yuanying, Golden Elixir period, and Foundation Establishment period had already reached the task standard. The only problem was that the total number of people was not more than 1,000. If he wanted a hand in the task, Lin Feng could now directly take the initiative to do it. But at this moment, he was thinking about how to deal with the current main task. Chapter 1059. If he wanted to complete the mission in advance, Lin Feng only needed to open the mountain gate again and gather a total of 1,000 disciples. Then he would go to the Xiantian Timeless Cave and stay there for a while. However, Lin Feng had many ideas about the special reward of the main mission, but it was still unknown whether his ideas could be realized. He also wanted to take this opportunity to verify it. Therefore, Lin Feng was not in a hurry to complete the mission and exchange it for the reward. Among the second-generation disciples, apart from Tang Jun, Han Yang, Zhou Yunsong, Huang Jinting, Yang Tai, and Ing Lizhou were also likely to form their nascent souls in the near future. Lu Xiaofeng and Li Xingfei had both successfully reached the late Golden Elixir realm and also had hopes of passing the Void Thunder Tribulation within the time limit. In addition, Tan Yunqing, Zhuge Wanxiu, Zhao Huan, Sun Xuer, Ke Jing, and Yin Wuwei were also not without hope. If Lin Feng himself completely does not enter the time acceleration paradise, then he may even be able to wait for the arrival of an outstanding figure of the third-generation direct disciples. With the help of the time acceleration paradise, he himself can cultivate to nascent soul within 50 years. In an ideal situation where there were no accidents, just based on the current composition of talents, there would definitely be more than 20 disciples reaching the nascent soul realm within 50 years. As for the number of disciples in the Golden Elixir period, it was inevitable that it would exceed 100, and there was a great chance that it would exceed 200. Lin Feng was very interested. If he completed the mission with a high standard, what kind of special reward would the system give him for the main mission? In addition to the rise of the younger disciples, the other members of the sect had also made great progress. It was naturally a good thing that Zen Master Dade had successfully cultivated the pure land of ultimate bliss and reached the third level of the Buddhist Golden Body realm. He was now in seclusion to nourish his pure land. In addition to Zen Master Dade, the North Sea Whale King finally achieved the immortal Demon Soul realm. There was another great saint-level demon in the world, which made the Nine-Clawed Eagle King, Kuei Ox King, Falian King, and even Jiu envious. The Northern Sea Whale King was already a late-stage demon king many years ago. Ever since he entered Xianmen Tianzong, he had been cultivating in seclusion and guarding the Mirror Lake. Lin Feng didn't mistreat him either. The sect also provided him with some resources that were helpful to the North Sea Whale King's cultivation. After Lin Feng returned from the Spirit Sea and gained a great understanding of the heavenly Tao Demon Sutra, he would give him some pointers from time to time. Now that the Northern Sea Whale King had finally succeeded in cultivating the indestructible demon soul, he was naturally extremely grateful to Lin Feng and was even more devoted to Xianmen Tianzong. According to the time of the vast thousand world, it had only been a dozen years since he entered Xianmen Tianzong, although he was already a late-stage demon king at that time. If he had been alone in the Arctic Ice Sea, it was unknown whether he could have obtained the immortal demon soul. Even if he encountered other great fortuitous encounters and successfully cultivated the immortal demon soul, he didn't know how long it would take. Sometimes the distance of a single step was the difference between heaven and earth. For humans to achieve the essence soul, and for demons to achieve the immortal demon soul, the difficulty exceeded the sum of all the previous stages of cultivation. It was most appropriate to describe it as being so close, yet worlds apart. The Northern Sea Whale King knew his own aptitude and the progress of his cultivation at that time very well, which was why he was even more grateful. After being captured by Lin Feng in the past, he obediently submitted to him. After that, he didn't have any other thoughts and worked hard without complaint, mostly because he was afraid of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong's power. In the beginning, the Northern Sea Whale King did feel humiliated and indignant. But now those negative emotions had all disappeared, leaving only joy and gratitude. Because of this, the old whale even felt a vague sense of relief. He felt that misfortune and fortune were intertwined, and it was hard to predict. Back then, the nine-clawed Eagle King and the Northern Sea Whale King were captured by Lin Feng and brought back to the mountain. The two demon kings had a cooperative relationship back then, but they weren't very close. But since they were both captives and old friends, their relationship had become much closer over the years. Now, seeing that his old friend had successfully ascended to the great saint position, the nine-clawed Eagle King was happy for him, but he was also very envious. All these years, he had also stayed in Xianmen Tianzong to do his cultivation. Because of his race's innate flying speed advantage, he had more opportunities to go out and do his work than the Northern Sea Whale King. At first, the nine-clawed Eagle King had thought of escaping, but he suppressed it in the end. He worked hard and gradually got used to life in Kunlun Mountain. Xianmen Tianzong had never mistreated those who worked hard and didn't have second thoughts. Like the Northern Sea Whale King, the nine-clawed Eagle King had received many benefits from Xianmen Tianzong, which were very beneficial to his cultivation. Even though he was still a little short of achieving the immortal demon soul, the nine-clawed Eagle King had reached the peak of the late Demon King stage and was only half a step away from breaking through the final bottleneck. So, although he was envious of his old friend's achievements, the nine-clawed Eagle King wasn't in a hurry. He just sighed inwardly. Back in the Arctic Ice Sea, he really didn't think that he would become a guard for the human race. He also didn't think that this would be a great opportunity for him, and he would benefit immensely. This was especially so when he realized that in Xianmen Tianzong, other than when he had to do his work seriously, Lin Feng and his disciples didn't really restrict his freedom. They didn't force him to do his work, nor did they treat him like a donkey. The younger disciples in the sect also treated him with great respect when they saw him, and they didn't look down on him at all. The Kuei Bull King, Philian King, and even Jieyu felt the same way. Putting Jieyu aside, the Kuei Bull King and Philian King had also made great progress over the years, and their cultivation and strength improved much faster than they had expected before they joined Xianmen Tianzong. The pair of flying snow plumes won by Lin Feng and Shi Tianhao during the Barren Sea Grand Assembly had long formed their demon nascent souls, and they advanced from the Demon Commander stage to the Demon King stage. They were now a pair of flying snow plumes kings. The flying snow plumes were in pairs. The male was called the flying snow plumes, while the female was called the heaven snow plumes. They were defeated by the Heavenly Pool sect in the past to Xianmen Tianzong, and they entered the desolate Heaven Valley until now. Speaking of which, the couple was worried that they would be eaten by Shi Tianhao. They only calmed down after that. It turned out that Lin Feng and his disciple had used their feathers to further strengthen Shi Tianhao's physique after refining them with a secret technique. Shi Tianhao's physique was unparalleled in the Divine Land at the same cultivation level. His unparalleled physique was the result of many factors, both innate and acquired. It was almost impossible to replicate. Within Xianmen Tianzong, even Lin Feng's divine god of battle clone, Xiao Yin, Yuhan Yin, and others with similarly powerful physiques were no match for him. It was a powerful physique that surpassed and even crushed the limits of the human body. Even many peerless demons could not compete with Shi Tianhao in terms of physique strength at the same cultivation level. When he combined the Dharma form with his physique in the late Yuanying period, he was already extremely outstanding. After Shi Tianhao achieved the nascent divinity, he became even more powerful. However, although it was difficult to recreate Shi Tianhao's personal glory, the path he had taken was also a great reference for the progress of the younger generation of disciples. When the sect had sufficient resources, it would naturally ensure that the younger generation of disciples were provided. For example, the feathers of the flying snow plumes were renewable resources under a certain limit. They helped the Xianmen Tianzong disciples who were interested in developing their physique martial Dao to refine and strengthen their physiques. For example, the former Goldie, the current Heavenly Thunder Immortal, and the second-generation First true disciple of the Desolate Sky Valley, Huang Jinting, had gone through a similar baptism when he was young. In addition, Tang Jun of Burning Heaven Cliff, Zhao Huan of Snow Wind Valley, and the others had also gone through the same experience, which boosted the strength and toughness of their physiques. But speaking of which, Heavenly Emperor Huang's disciples are all a little. The Flying Snow Plume King seemed to recall something and shook his head slightly. His wife, the Heavenly Snow Plume King, also smiled. It's very normal for them to be of the same lineage. Not to mention the tendency during the direct disciple test, there will also be a subtle influence during the nurturing process. The Flying Snow Plume King nodded. Let's not talk about the Yellow Immortal. He is much more mature now. However, his current disciples are exactly the same as when he was young. The Heavenly Snow Plume King grinned. I feel that they are even more unreliable than the Yellow Immortal. They seem to have returned? The Flying Snow Plume King looked into the distance and saw a few rainbows breaking through the sky and descending into the Desolate Sky Valley. I remember that the Yellow Immortal took little Shi Yang out for the Desolate Sky Emperor's side residence. They have been gone for a long time, right? It seems that there is finally a result. A few rays of light descended into the gorge, and the person in the lead was a tall violet-clothed young man. It was Huang Jinting. Presently, he was already of age, and he seemed to be straightforward and valiant just like when he was young. However, the immaturity on his face had completely vanished. There were a few young people standing beside him, all of whom were the third-generation true disciples of the Desolate Sky Valley. Although their cultivation was still low, they were all full of spirit. However, the common characteristic of these young people was that their eyeballs were constantly moving. They looked quite lively, but there was also a hint of restlessness. In front of the senior cultivators of other forces, they were all relatively quiet and obediently stood beside Huang Jinting. Behind Huang Jinting was a man and a woman. They looked like a perfect match, a match made in heaven. The man had a bright smile on his face, and there was a dimple on the right side of his cheek. The woman was tall, with strong facial features and a high nose bridge. It was obvious that she was a person with a strong and determined personality. Martial Uncle Gu, Martial Uncle Li, please come in. I contacted my master earlier and said that he is refining an artifact. He asked this disciple to bring you indirectly. Huang Jinting smiled and cupped his hands at the couple. This couple was naturally Shi Tianhao's old friends, the successors of the Purple Sky Path, Gu Lei and Li Qin. Although they were still young, they were already elders of the Purple Sky Path. Gu Lei smiled and said, speaking of refining artifacts, I really have to write the word admire in your Xianmen Tianzong. Little Huang, you have more Yuanying stage artifacts than me, a Yuanying stage cultivator. Li Kuei also didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard this. To be precise, your family's assets are comparable to our family's. Their relationship with Shi Tianhao had always been good, so they were much more casual when it came to teasing. Huang Jinting smiled and said, "I've made a fool of myself in front of the two martial uncles." As the group talked and laughed, they had already arrived at the center of the desolate Sky Valley. There was a huge stone hall there. As they approached, the hall's door suddenly opened, and Shi Tianhao walked out. He cupped his fists and said with a smile, "Long time no see." Everyone smiled and greeted. Huang Jinting waited for Shi Tianhao to greet Gu Lei and his wife before he bowed and said, "Master, this disciple and the others have found a place that is very suitable to be your second residence." Chapter 1060. Shi Tianhao's eyes lit up when he heard that. "Oh, where is it?" Huang Jinting answered with a smile. "From the southern wasteland to the infinite wasteland vast land. After entering the infinite wasteland vast land, head east from the exit. About 4,000 kilometers away, there's a canyon with a very good environment." He glanced at a youth beside him. Speaking of which, it was Shi Yang who discovered it. It was a young man who looked like a tiger. Although he was only at the foundation establishment stage, he exuded a fearless spirit. His name was Shi Yang, and he was Huang Jinting's personal disciple. Although he had only been in the sect for a short period of time, he had gradually become famous among the third-generation disciples and was looked upon favorably by many seniors and fellow disciples. What was worth mentioning was that he was related to Shi Tianhao by blood. He was a descendant of the Shi clan that had migrated into the Xianmen realm. When he was young, he passed the test and successfully entered the Xianmen Tianzong sect. The Shi clan members that entered the Xianmen realm were all distant branches. Usually, they were not treated very well, but because of this, they had made great progress in the Xianmen realm in recent years. Among them, there were many people with cultivation talent, but those with outstanding talent were very rare. Shi Yang was one of the rare exceptions. His talent was so high that he was the top existence in the entire Shi clan's younger generation. It alarmed the Shi clan, and even the great Qin dynasty had heard of him. But now, to the Shi clan, they naturally wanted their own clansmen to enter the Xianmen Tianzong sect. Even if the branch was strong and the main branch was weak, they did not care. Moreover, Xianmen Tianzong did not forbid the Shi clan members from entering the sect. There were indeed disciples from the Shi clan who entered the Xianmen Tianzong sect, but they were not as outstanding as Shi Yang. As the Battle of West Hill City gradually became history, the Shi clan that had kept a low profile for many years finally had the momentum to rise again because of their relationship with Xianmen Tianzong. However, in the territory of the great Qin dynasty, the Shi clan still maintained enough respect for the imperial family and did not become arrogant. The great Qin dynasty could tolerate the existence of aristocratic families, but the premise was that it had to be under control. It was impossible for the imperial family to not have any thoughts towards the profound Gate Sky sect that stood behind the Shi clan and had risen once more within their own kingdom. However, the profound Gate Heaven sect had no intention of supporting the Shi family, nor did they have any intention of taking the initiative to expand their influence in the Qin dynasty. Adding on the fact that the Shi family that had risen up were rather clever, the Qin dynasty took a tacit attitude. Of course, if the Shi family didn't do anything out of line, the great Qin dynasty would have to consider the reaction of the profound Gate Sky sect if it wanted to touch the Shi family. Even if the profound Gate Sky sect hadn't expressed any opinions from the beginning, the formless deterrent force was there, and the great Qin dynasty had to take it seriously. Shi Yang entered the barren Sky Valley after passing the direct disciple exam. Naturally, Shi Tianhao was one of the reasons. However, Shi Yang himself didn't really care about it at the beginning. It was mainly because his family had been nagging him so much that his ears were about to grow calluses. After entering Huang Jinting's tutelage, he did not receive any special treatment. Instead, being Huang's disciple was quite torturous. Although he was not as black-bellied as his master, This did not stop Huang from imparting his experiences to his disciples. As a result, Shi Yang and the others began to live a life of pain and happiness from the moment they entered. However, Shi Yang had a bit of his master Huang Jinting's carefree vigor. After all these years, he had become more and more sturdy. Moreover, what made others not know whether to laugh or cry was that the Tianyang lineage had produced a little demon king. He was of the same lineage as his master and grandmaster. Like master, like disciple. After Huang, Jinting became an adult and became more and more reliable. His disciple perfectly took over his position. There was really no break in his work. Gulei and Li Kueyin looked at Huang Jinting and Shi Yang speechlessly. They had coincidentally met Huang Jinting and Shi Yang on the way to Kunlun Mountain, but they did not know what they were doing. It was not a secret, so Huang Jinting did not hide it from them. In the end, the two were immediately shocked. Gulei and Li Kueyin knew that Shi Tianhao often went to Infinite Wilderness. However, going to the demon world of Infinite Wilderness and occupying a place to set up one's own residence were two completely different things. Just like in the Divine Land, there were very few powerful demons who occupied a piece of land. Great demons like the North Sea Whale King and the Nine-Clawed Eagle King were already at their limit. However, they were independent after all. Unlike Shi Tianhao, who had already formed an essence soul and had Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong standing behind him. Today, Xianmin Tianzong's influence was no longer limited to the human world in the Divine Land. Even the demons in Infinite Wilderness were paying attention to this behemoth that was becoming increasingly powerful. Some actions in the Divine Land would attract attention, not to mention going to the Infinite Wilderness for a horse race. Currently, there was a piece of land that the human race had firmly occupied in Infinite Wilderness, Taiwan Mountain, which was occupied by the Taishu Temple. A few years ago, it was attacked by the demons and almost completely destroyed. According to Huang Jinting's description, the place they had their eyes on was rather remote and close to the entrance of the realm passage connecting the Divine Land and Infinite Wilderness. It was not like Taiwan Mountain, which was located in a strategic location and could cover a large area in many directions. However, Shi Tianhao had opened another residence in this valley. It was very likely that the demon race would think that he was occupying a bridgehead and was preparing for the war between the two worlds. It was hard to predict how the demons would react. Gulei and Li Kueyin looked at Shi Yang and then at Huang Jinting, not knowing what to say for a moment. Shi Yang had found this place, and Huang Jinting seemed to agree with him. He was really of the same bloodline as Shi Tianhao, bold to the extreme and not afraid of causing trouble. Thinking of this, Gulei and Li Kueyin turned to look at Shi Tianhao. After hearing the news, Shi Tianhao frowned and said seriously, "I've passed by the place you mentioned, and there is no valley there." Indeed, Gulei and Li Kueyin looked at each other and smiled bitterly. I knew it would be like this. After listening to Huang Jinting and Shi Yang's report, Shi Tianhao's first reaction was not that the Infinite Wilderness was not suitable for setting up a manor, but that he had been there before, and there was no blessed land suitable for setting up a manor there. Huang Jinting smiled and said, "I specially captured a few demons nearby and asked them about it. In the past few years, the terrain there has changed and gradually formed a valley. The flow of the heaven and earth spiritual energy around the valley has also changed accordingly, making it a good, blessed land." After saying that, he looked at Gulei and Li Kueyin and continued, "Now that valley is covered in thunderclouds all year round, and the lightning essence is getting denser and denser. Although it is not on a large scale yet, after observing for a long time, I am sure that with the passage of time, it will eventually become an outstanding treasure land. Because it has not yet taken shape, it has not been noticed by the stronger demons. It is currently in an ownerless state and has great potential in the future." Hearing this, Shi Tianhao nodded and said, "Oh, in that case, it is indeed a good place." He thought for a moment, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The location is just right. Hearing Shi Tianhao's words, Gulei and Li Kueyin's hearts moved slightly. They understood that there was a hidden meaning in Shi Tianhao's words. It was not that he was simply unscrupulous. On the contrary, while being extremely bold, there were other considerations. After seriously thinking for a moment, Goulet looked at Shi Tianhao and said, "Could it be that you want to?" Shi Tianhao raised an index finger to his lips and stopped Goulet from continuing. He then smiled at Huang Jinting and the other younger disciples and said, "Senior brother Gu, don't speak first. Let them use their brains." Goulet and Li Kueyin both laughed. Li Kueyin looked at Shi Tianhao and sighed. "Tianhao, don't you always use your fists and mouth?" Being teased by her like this, Shi Tianhao was not angry and laughed. "Senior sister Li, don't laugh at me." Huang Jinting, Shi Yang, and the rest could tell that Shi Tianhao was implying something, so they started to ponder over it. Fortunately, they were already used to Shi Tianhao's unconstrained way of thinking. On a branch of the mysterious sky treasure tree, Lin Feng glanced at the desolate sky valley out of the corner of his eyes and shook his head with a smile. Shi Tianhao, Goulet, and Li Kueyin became husband and wife in the desolate sea assembly. At that time, although Shi Tianhao had already reached the golden elixir period, he was still a brat in his teens. Although Goulet and Li Kueyin were not as strong as Shi Tianhao, they were still late golden elixir period cultivators and the most outstanding talents of the younger generation of the Purple Cloud Path. Now, the two of them had already formed their nascent souls. Based on their cultivation speed and strength, they could be considered geniuses in the entire Divine Land. However, Shi Tianhao had already formed his nascent soul. In terms of strength, even the Purple Cloud Path Sect Master, Dao Master Lei Yun, was no match for him. In terms of strength and status, the gap between the two of them was indeed quite large. As the saying went, dragons did not befriend snakes. It was difficult for people of completely different levels to become true friends. Even if they did become friends, as the distance between them continued to grow, the friendship would eventually fade away. Sometimes, it was not that the strong disliked the weak. On the contrary, it was precisely because they were strong that they did not care about what others thought of them. On the contrary, the weak would become more and more embarrassed and uncomfortable under the criticism of others until it hurt their self-esteem. For people like Shi Tianhao, even if they had companions, those companions would often serve as a foil to them. In the end, those companions would not be able to keep up with them and would gradually disappear from their world. Those who could barely keep up would only become followers or background characters. As the saying went, companions are all trash at fighting, and when they fight, they stand aside and show off. However, at this moment, the conversation between Shi Tianhao, Goulet, and Li Kueyin was no different from the past. Shi Tianhao was willing to befriend them only because they were worth befriending, not because of how high their cultivation levels were or how strong they were. Making friends was because they were like-minded, not because of the strength of a fighter. Even if there was a day when they would gradually drift apart in the future, it should not affect today's happy journey. Even today, Lin Feng's cultivation level and status were far above Kong Nanhua and Miao Shihao's, but there was no difference between the two of them in their daily conversation. To be able to maintain a calm state of mind in front of Lin Feng and Shi Tianhao, neither humble nor arrogant, neither embarrassed nor jealous, it was not something that could be done just by being thick-skinned. One state of mind had its merits. Even if he could not make a name for himself in the future, he would definitely achieve something. Chapter 1061. In the barren sky valley, Li Kueyin looked at Shi Tianhao and smiled. "By the way, Tianhao, you're already an adult. Your cultivation is successful and your foundation is stable. Do you have a cultivation partner that you like?" Hearing this, Shi Tianhao chuckled. "No, there is no need." Goulet smiled and looked him up and down. "Do you really not care, or have you not been enlightened yet? Are you already past the age limit? A long time ago, Grandpa once mentioned that he wanted me to have a child as soon as possible. However, if I marry a wife just for this, I feel that it is not good for the woman, so I've been dragging it on." Shi Tianhao said casually, "Until now, I do not have any special thoughts. I have already decided to leave it at that. His tone was relaxed, but there was no joy in his eyes. On the contrary, there was some worry. Hearing this, Goulet and Li Kuei-yin were silent. As close friends with Shi Tianhao, they naturally knew that Shi Tianhao's parents were still missing. After his grandfather, Shi Zhongtian, entered the void battlefield again, his whereabouts were also unknown. Even the Shi family's original leader, Shi Wu, had entered the void battlefield to look for him, but there was not much news from him. The uniqueness of the void battlefield meant that it was very difficult to find people. It was especially difficult to find them. Shi Tianhao had spent most of his time in the void battlefield. A while ago, he stayed there for a long time and only returned to Yujing Mountain before Lin Feng went to the Sea of Stars. Coincidentally, he met up with Lin Feng and entered the barren ancient star ocean together. If there were no accidents, Shi Tianhao would stay at Yujing Mountain for a while to deal with the backlog of matters. Then, he would enter the void battlefield again to find his family. He had walked this slow and long path for a long time and would continue until there was a definite result. At this time, the void split open and a figure walked out of the space crack. He was dressed in a purple robe with a white robe over it. He was dressed like a scholar. It was Zhu Yi. After appearing, Zhu Yi cupped his hands at Goulet and Li Kuei-yin. I had something to do and was delayed after receiving the news. Sorry for making you wait. Other than being Shi Tianhao's close friends, Goulet and Li Kuei-yin also had a good relationship with Zhu Yi. In particular, Goulet was more familiar with Zhu Yi, while Li Kuei-yin was more familiar with Shi Tianhao. After greeting Zhu Yi, Goulet intentionally changed the topic and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, Tianhao has been chased to the front by his juniors." As he spoke, he opened his palm and took out a piece of refined jade that flickered with purple light. This is something my disciple entrusted me to give to fellow Taoist Zhu's disciple. It has the effect of sound transmission and can be used multiple times. Seeing this, Shi Tianhao laughed. Oh, it's for Tai. He looked at Goulet and Li Kuei-yin. Xiaolon is very magnanimous. Even for such a thing, don't look at her like a little girl. She's in a trial that will last for a long time and can't leave Purple Sky Peak. So she asked us to bring it here. Goulet smiled bitterly. What is there to be magnanimous about? She's just a tomboy. Only Atai would like her. Goulet smiled bitterly. What is there to be magnanimous about? She's just a tomboy. Only Atai would like her. Zhu Yi also smiled and took the refined jade from Goulet's hand. Xiaolon is indeed not inferior to men. With a thought, Yang Tai's figure came to desolate Heaven Valley and bowed to Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao. Disciple greets master and seventh martial uncle. After bowing to the seniors, Yang Tai turned to Goulet and Li Kuei-yin and bowed again. Martial Uncle Gu, Martial Uncle Li. Goulet looked at Yang Tai and said with a smile, Your cultivation has improved again. Even if we husband and wife work together, we might not be your match. His tone was calm and honest without any embarrassment. Yang Tai bowed and replied without arrogance or pretentiousness. Martial Uncle overpraises me. Junior still needs more training. Zhu Yi smiled and handed the refined jade to Yang Tai. Yang Tai was slightly startled, but Li Kuei-yin smiled and said, My tomboy wants to bring this to you. Hearing this, Yang Tai's calm and steady expression slightly changed into a bit of embarrassment. After accepting the refined jades, he paused for a bit before asking, Is senior sister Xiaolon still doing well? Zhu Yi pointed at the refined jade in his disciple's hand. If you have any questions, ask them yourself. Go. He waved his hand at Yang Tai. Yang Tai looked at the refined jade in his hand and immediately understood. He smiled. There is no need to rush. You, Martial Uncle Gu, and Martial Uncle Li have not seen each other for a long time. When you're talking, this disciple will stand to the side. If you have any instructions, this disciple will immediately go and do it. Shi Tianhao smiled and said, Little Yellow and the others are enough here. You can go and do your own things. Seeing Zhu Yi nod his head, Yang Tai bowed and said, Yes, this disciple will take his leave. Seeing Yang Tai's departing figure, Goulet and Li Kuei-yin looked at each other and smiled. He is very calm. Yang Tai was not in a hurry and did not care. He was in a hurry and did not show it in front of Gu Lei and Li Kuan. However, when he was about to leave the desolate sky valley, his steps were clearly much bigger, but he could still control himself and put his personal affairs first. I have embarrassed myself in front of the two of you, Zhu Yi said with a smile. Gu Lei and Li Kuan shook their heads. No. Although he is still young, he has already become a great person. Gu Lei said, "We're here because we've discovered a thunder rumbling jade mine in the Fangyu realm. I'm sure your sect needs it." Oh, Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao looked at each other and nodded slightly. The Fangyu realm was a medium-class world. Just like the ancient Origin Heaven realm, it was divided and occupied by a few forces. Originally, the Reincarnation sect had a share of this place. After the exterminating Xian War, the Reincarnation sect gave compensation and apologized. In fact, one of the compensation they gave to Xianmin Tianzong was the territory they occupied in the Fangyu realm. Later, Lin Feng thanked Purple Cloud Dao for lending a hand to Xianmin Tianzong during the exterminating Xian War. Therefore, he directly transferred the territories in the two medium-class worlds that the Reincarnation sect had ceded to Purple Cloud Dao, including the territory in the Fangyu realm. Gu Lei was referring to a new mineral vein that had been discovered in this territory. On the other hand, the Thundercry Jade was a rare mineral that was extremely rare. It was extremely beneficial to cultivators who practice the Thunder Arts or those who use the Thunder Essence Qi to refine their bodies. Gu Lei and Li Kuan naturally did not come together just to give something to their disciple. They also had to discuss the Thunder Jade Vein with Xianmin Tianzong. Although Xianmin Tianzong had completely transferred the territory in the Fangyu realm to Purple Cloud Dao, from Xianmin Tianzong's point of view, the Fangyu realm had nothing to do with them. How the Purple Cloud Dao wanted to deal with the resources produced in the Fangyu realm was entirely up to them. But in the past few years, the resources produced in the Fangyu realm had been supplied to Xianmin Tianzong in large quantities, in addition to their own use. This time, it was not surprising that Purple Cloud Dao informed Xianmin Tianzong that new Thunder Jade Vein had been discovered in the Fangyu realm. Of course, this was also an act of goodwill. After the karma discussion, it was normal for Purple Cloud Dao to do so. They might not have made up their mind to come to Kunlun Mountain to ask for advice, but they would definitely further strengthen their good relationship and lay a more solid foundation. Lin Feng was well aware of this, but he did not care. This was a normal exchange of favors. In the following days, the situation in Kunlun Mountain and the Divine Land gradually returned to peace. The only thing worth mentioning was that Shi Tianhao brought Huang Jinting and a group of Barren Sky Valley disciples to Infinite Wasteland and occupied the valley that Huang Jinting and Shi Yang had found. They carried out a large-scale construction and opened it up as Shi Tianhao's personal residence. To many people's surprise, although the local demon clans were wantonly resisting, the truly powerful demon clans chose to turn a blind eye to this. This was a stark contrast to the Taishu Temple's occupation of Taiwan Mountain. There was a lot of discussion in the Divine Land. Some people thought that compared to the Taishu Temple's occupation of Taiwan Mountain, the valley that Shi Tianhao occupied was geographically remote and did not seem to have any special value at the moment. Therefore, the great demons did not want to clash with Xianmin Tianzong for no reason. Some people also thought that compared to the Taishu Temple, the great demons were more afraid of Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong. Some people also thought that the great demons were more afraid of the Taishu Temple, so they paid more attention to it and did not care about Shi Tianhao's behavior. In short, all kinds of speculations were rampant. Due to the special geographical environment, Shi Tianhao had to temporarily take charge of his new residence and put aside the matter of going to the void battlefield to find his relatives. However, it would not take too long. With the Tsangtian Dao Jian accompanying him, he could set off again after the initial period of establishing the new residence. On Yujing Mountain, Lin Feng continued to travel between the Divine Land and the Barren Sky Sea. He cultivated his Dao and tried to figure out his own Dao art, as well as his incomplete new divine powers. Ding of Xinzhou ostracized Xiaoyan, so Lin Feng had to concoct pills himself most of the time. Although it took up a lot of time, it helped Lin Feng's level of concoction improve a lot. Through Ding of Xinzhou, a large number of resources were transformed into a large number of pills. Not only did they provide for the cultivation of Xianmin Tianzong's own disciples, but they were also provided to the sects that were friendly with Xianmin Tianzong, such as the Purple Cloud Dao. They became another powerful weapon for Xianmin Tianzong to unite the various human cultivation forces in the Divine Land. On one hand, Xiao Yin and the others concentrated on their own cultivation, and on the other hand, they taught and guided their disciples. Once again, Xianmin Tianzong entered a period of rapid development. As time passed, after Tang Jun, Zhou Yunsong, Han Yang, Ing Luozha, Huang Jinting, and Yang Tai successively formed the Yuanying period. Tan Yunqing, Zhuge Wanxiu, Zhao Huan, Sun Shuer, Ke Jing, and Yin Wei all reached the late stage of the Golden Elixir period and were close to forming their nascent souls. The second generation of successor disciples and the third generation of successor disciples were growing rapidly. The nascent soul stage and the Aurus core stage of the celestial sect 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 showed signs of a blowout once again. Chapter 1062. The top batch of second-generation disciples have basically all succeeded in forming their nascent souls or are close to doing so. Lin Feng smiled. But if the rest want to catch up, they'll have to wait. After all, the higher the cultivation level, the more difficult it is to make progress, and the more time it takes. When it's broken down to each individual, the difference will easily become bigger. He turned to look at Xiaoyan. On the other hand, the third-generation disciples are gradually growing up. This is a good thing. There are new talents in every generation. Xiaoyan smiled and said, just as Master said, this is a gratifying performance. Lin Feng asked, is Tian you going to try to pass the Void Lightning Tribulation soon? Xiaoyan nodded. In terms of accumulation, he's still a bit lacking, but his personality is very inclined to do as he pleases and be free. Right now, he's already satisfied with his state of mind. If he suppresses it and settles it down, it'll be a bit disadvantageous. In the future, even if he accumulates enough, I'm afraid there will be flaws in his state of mind. At this point, Xiaoyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Everyone has their own opportunities and paths, so I still plan to let him decide for himself. I've watched him grow up, so I understand him quite well. Although he's quite casual, he won't take this kind of thing lightly. Lin Feng nodded. Teaching in accordance with his aptitude should be like this. You just need to grasp it. Hearing that, Xiaoyan's face revealed a smile. Disciple has always trusted Lu Xiafeng's temperament and willpower. Especially after experiencing the matter of Tang Jun catching up from behind, it is indeed very rare for him to still be able to maintain a calm and unwavering state of mind. Lin Feng also smiled. Tian Song's situation is special. He can't be compared to the others. Tang Jun possessed the Azure Flame Emperor's body. Apart from the lethality of the flames itself, the Azure Flame it produced could also interfere with the flow of time. This interference didn't only affect the opponent, but also Tang Jun himself. As Tang Jun's cultivation increased, he became more and more comfortable with his Azure Flame. This kind of innate ability could not only be used to fight with others, but it could also be used in daily cultivation. Activating the Azure Flame consumed a lot of Tang Jun's magic power and spiritual power, so it couldn't be used for a long time. But in the process of constantly activating it, Tang Jun was actually constantly honing his control over this power. He broke through his limits again and again, ushering in greater progress. The reason why Tang Jun was able to catch up and improve his cultivation faster than Zhou Yunsong, Han Yang, and the others was because of his special physique. Of course, apart from having the Azure Flame Emperor body, Azure Flame Emperor's body was also very good. He had 9 points of innate bone potential, 9 points of comprehension, 8 points of will, and 6 points of fortune. The total value of the 4 innate potential was 32 points. What was even more eye-catching was that excluding fortune, the total value of the first 3 innate potential was 26 points, which was the highest among all the second-generation direct disciples. Under the protection of Lin Feng, Xiao Yin and his disciple, as well as Xianmin Tianzong, the fortune source 6 points were obviously enough. If the total value of one's innate potential was high enough, it meant that one's potential was huge. Of course, whether one's potential could be truly transformed was not certain. There were also people with high total value of their innate potential, but in the end, they did not grow to the level they expected. However, with Tang Jun's current momentum, he could already predict the future. It was bound to be limitless. Speaking of which, Lin Feng had only seen a few people with such high potential qualities in innate talent, comprehension, and will. At the very least, he hadn't seen many people who could accurately see the values. Excluding the 4 chosen ones under his tutelage, Lin Feng often suspected that the values of these 4 people were not the same as the others, or that the reference values were really only for reference purposes. Of course, although it was very difficult to change, the values of these 4 innate potential were not completely unchanged. Until today, the values of Xiao Yin and the others had already changed. Even Yang Qing and Yu Hanyin, after the battle with Zhang Lai, their potential values had also changed. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yin. The growth of the younger generation disciples is gratifying. The few of you have also improved, which makes me even more gratified. Xiao Yin said, "The situation of the vast thousand worlds is changing rapidly. Although it is calm now, it is actually like a taut bowstring. The arrow is on the string, and it will be fired at any moment. As for when it will happen, we and the others can't see it. We can only focus on our daily practice. After all, forging iron requires one's own strength." He smiled slightly. After all, while we are working hard, the others are not idle. In the few years after the Xian Annihilation Battle, the overall situation in the Divine Land was determined to be the 2 extremes of Xianmin Tianzong and Taishu Temple. Under the overall situation, there were small changes, especially with the news that the current leader of the Dragon Clan, Yuan Long King, had successfully passed through the intermediate tribulation. The entire Tianyuan Great World was filled with the momentum of a storm. Relatively speaking, the changes in the human cultivation world and the Divine Land were worth paying attention to, and the first to bear the brunt was the Heavenly Sword sect. After the Heavenly Sword sect leader, Heavenly Sword Venerable, who had returned to the Void in Dao on the spot during the Battle of Shu Mountain, another Void Return expert of the Heavenly Sword sect, Supreme Elder Sword Immortal, had finally come out after many years of seclusion and successfully reached the Dao Integration Realm. Elder Sword Immortal was an elder of the Heavenly Sword sect, born in the Middle Era. He had already cultivated for more than 10,000 years, and his seniority was extremely high. Even the Heavenly Sword Venerable had to call him Martial Granduncle. After the Battle of Shu Mountain, after Lin Feng had sent Xian Tian into destruction with heaven punishing, Elder Sword Immortal had gone into seclusion. When he came out recently, he had finally reached the Void Return and Dao Integration Realm. In the past few years, the Heavenly Sword sect had produced 2 Dao Integration Realm experts, and the entire Divine Land was shocked. However, due to various reasons, the Heavenly Sword sect had kept a low profile. They had simply invited people who were close to them to celebrate, and they had not made a big deal out of it. It was worth mentioning that Elder Sword Immortal had also invited people from Xianmin Tianzong to attend the ceremony. Although Lin Feng did not congratulate him, Xiao Yin, as his eldest disciple, personally went to the Heavenly Mountain and received a great welcome. When Heavenly Sword Venerable and Elder Sword Immortal met Xiao Yin in private, they once again asked him to convey their gratitude to Lin Feng. In the past, the Heavenly Sword sect and Xianmin Tianzong had a good relationship. However, after the Battle of Xiling City, their relationship became awkward. It was not to say that they had broken off relations or become enemies, but it was definitely at the freezing point. This time, when Xiao Yin went to the Heavenly Mountain to congratulate him, Elder Sword Immortal had left the mountain to greet him. It could be seen as a journey to break the ice between the two sides. This was partly due to the fact that Lin Feng had sent Xian Tian into destruction. The karma discourse a few years ago might have also affected things. Taishu Temple was also invited to attend the ceremony. The current Empyrean Walker, Lin Daohan, came to congratulate him and met Xiao Yan. Both sides were very calm, as if the conflict in the desolate ancient sea of stars a few years ago had never happened. The Heavenly Sword sect, which had always been supported by Taishu Temple, had broken the ice between Xianmen Tianzong and the Heavenly Sword sect. Taishu Temple did not express any objections. However, no matter if it's the Celestial Sword Lord or the Old Sword Immortal, they naturally also expressed even greater respect towards the Void Temple. This was similarly within the expectations of Lin Feng and Xiao Yan. The far-reaching effects of Xian Tian's destruction began to ferment as time passed. Other than Heavenly Sword Venerable and Elder Sword Immortal, the sect leader of the Vast Sea Sword sect, Sword Venerable of the Vast Sea, had also been in seclusion for the past few years. He was also a great sword cultivator who had refined his spirit to return to the void for a long time. Through the information obtained by Xianmen Tianzong, the Thunderous Sword Venerable also expressed that he was gradually breaking through the bottleneck and would soon be in seclusion to break through to the unification realm. The sect leader of the Constellation Sword sect, the Constellation Sword Venerable, had successfully refined his spirit to return to the void after 3,000 years in the vast thousand worlds. The Sun and Moon Sword sect had a Yuanying stage ancestor who cultivated in the Moonlight Sword Dao, who had successfully proven his primordial spirit. The Sun Luminary Sword Venerable had finally arrived. Shushan had remained silent and did not respond to the many changes. They were still sealed off from the outside world, and there was no news from within, as if they were isolated from the world. The changes in the various Sword Dao sects were overwhelming, and they became the main content of the changes in the overall stability of the Divine Land. Other than the Heavenly Sword sect, the Vast Sea Sword sect, and other forces, another eye-catching change appeared in the north. During the Battle of West Hill City, they annexed the territory of the Heavenly Lake sect, unified the northern border, and integrated the various resources of the northern border. After their overall strength had greatly increased, the Northern Militant Imperial Court had also helped Xianmen Tianzong in the battle of exterminating the Xian. After that, Lin Feng rewarded them by giving the Flaming Sky Divine Cauldron from the Eastern Heaven Gate to the Northern Militant Imperial Court. Although the Flaming Sky Divine Cauldron from the Eastern Heaven Gate was only a spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure and could not compare to the Flaming Sky Divine Cauldron, one of the 9 treasures of the Heavenly Gate in the ancient times, it was already a treasure for the Northern Militant Imperial Court. With a large amount of resources, the Flaming Sky Divine Cauldron was converted for the use of the Northern Militant cultivators. In addition to the exchange of resources with Xianmen Tianzong, the Northern Militant Imperial Court had embarked on a period of rapid development that had not been seen for many years. Its rapid development had even attracted the attention of the Great Qin Dynasty and the Great Zhou Dynasty. However, the upper echelons of the Northern Militant Imperial Court were very clear-headed. They adopted a more conservative attitude towards the Great Qin Dynasty and formed an alliance with the Great Qin Dynasty. When facing the Great Zhou Dynasty, they did not do anything too out of line or provoke the bottom line of the Great Zhou Dynasty. After the battle of exterminating the Xian, the Great Zhou Dynasty's own strategic posture had completely turned into a defensive one. As for the rise of the Northern Militant Imperial Court, they could only remain silent on the surface. Of course, private confrontations were everywhere. The Great Qin Dynasty and the Northern Militant Imperial Court were the same. And recently, not long before the Old Sword Immortal's Dao fusion, the strongest martial artist of the northern border, the Northern Militant Imperial Court's Great Chanyu, who had cultivated his spirit for thousands of years, finally succeeded in Dao fusion, causing the strength of the Northern Militant Imperial Court to steadily increase. Apart from the fact that there were no treasures of fortune to suppress their fate, The northern militant imperial court and the heavenly sword sect had become powerful forces in the divine land that could not be ignored. Apart from Xianmin, Tianzong, and Taishu Temple, even the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Zhou dynasty had begun to pay attention to them. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yin and silently said, "The information we have at hand is still too little, especially the information about Taishu Temple. So, it remains to be seen how the balance of the situation will be broken. It's a good thing that you all are diligently cultivating. It's never wrong to improve your own strength. Master has a premonition that when Protector Miao comes out this time, he will bring us a lot of useful things." The reason why he went into seclusion was not because of a problem with his cultivation. Lin Feng looked up at the void, slowly said, "Recently, the changes in space have gradually become more frequent. It's not far from the day he comes out." Chapter 1063. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yin and said with a smile, "Miss Zhang has finally completed the trial?" Xiao Yin heard this and immediately chuckled. "Yes, just as disciple returned from the sky-piercing mountain." He looked at Lin Feng with a sneaky look. Lin Feng scolded him with a smile. "Brat, what's with that look?" Xiao Yin happily scooted over, his face filled with a fawning smile. "Master," Lin Feng said with a smile. All right. Since when did I go back on my promise to you?" "Back then, I said I would personally come to propose marriage for you. So, I will definitely go." "Thank you, Master," Xiao Yin cheered. At this moment, he seemed to have returned to the half-grown youth in Wuzhou City. Lin Feng said to him, "Choose a few capable people from your sect to accompany them. Not only is it a show, but it can also be considered a form of training for them." Xiao Yin's expression became more solemn. He cupped his hands and said, "Don't worry, Master. Disciple understands." During the battle of exterminating Xian, the crack of the Nether Sea suddenly appeared in the ancient world of immortals. Whether it was Taishu Temple, the people in the ancient world of immortals, or Lin Feng and his disciple, they all determined that it was related to the king of the underworld. Although there had been no movement after that, and the king of the underworld had always hidden himself, Lin Feng and the others had never let down their guard. Lin Feng scanned with his divine sense. "Yes, little Lin, Hong Yin, and Xiao Wu are all in seclusion, so I won't disturb them. There are some movements at Tianhao's new villa, so he can't be separated." With a flick of his finger, two streams of light flew up and landed in Qiantian Palace and Hulua House respectively. In the next moment, Zhu Yi and Li Yuanfang came to them at the same time. They first bowed to Lin Feng, then to Xiao Yin. "Master, eldest senior brother." Lin Feng said with a smile, "Master is going to the ancient world of immortals to propose marriage for your eldest senior brother. If you have nothing to do, let's go together." Zhu Yi and Li Yuanfang looked at each other and nodded. "We have nothing to do, Master." After answering Lin Feng, the two looked at Xiao Yin, and Zhu Yi smiled. "Congratulations, eldest senior brother. You're finally going to marry Zhener?" The serious expression on Li Yuanfang's face faded a lot, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He solemnly cupped his fists at Xiao Yin and said, "Congratulations, eldest senior brother." Xiao Yin said with a smile, "Thank you for accompanying me, this Harry's son-in-law, to the ancient world of immortals." Li Yuanfang said, "Master is going to the ancient world of immortals to propose marriage, so other than me and second senior brother, the disciples of the younger generation will also have to come along. Even if Lin Feng goes alone, it's impossible for anyone to look down on him. The reason why he has to bring people to put on a front is not for the face of the Xian Gate Sky sect. On the contrary, it's to express formality, to show enough respect to the bride's family." Xiao Yin said, "Other than a few who will stay behind to look after the clan, the rest of my direct disciples will have to come with me. You guys can choose as you please." Li Yuanfang said, "Eldest senior brother, Tian Song will definitely come with you this time. He is the head of all your disciples, so when he goes to the ancient world of immortals, he will be responsible for the reception of cultivators below the primordial spirit realm. Little Tong will naturally go as well. She must miss Zhener a lot. Xiao Yan nodded. Tianyu will be in seclusion to try to challenge the Void Thunder Tribulation, so he won't be coming with me this time. But Tian Feng can go with him to gain experience and help Tiansong. Tian Feng was one of Xiao Yan's earliest direct disciples, the little fatty Yin Wuwei. After successfully forming his gold core, Xiao Yan gave Yin Wuwei the Taoist name of Tian Feng. The word Feng made the little fatty sad for a long time. However, as he grew older and experienced, the little fatty who liked to run his mouth and did things undependably had now matured a lot. However, he was still carefree and fat. Xiao Yan didn't know if it was a misconception, but he felt that he was even fatter than when he was young. And the current Yin Wuwei, after being tempered, can already hold his own and live up to Xiao Yan's expectations. And because of his personality and tongue, he has quite a bit of talent in dealing with people and socializing with people. As the second-generation direct disciples, and even the third-generation direct disciples gradually grew up, many internal affairs and errands in Xinmen Tianzong were gradually handed over to them. Yin Wuwei was usually in charge of Fun Tianya's external affairs. Other than Fun Tianya, if cultivators from other sects came to visit, Yin Wuwei was also the main person in charge of receiving them. If there was official business that required him to go out, the fatty was also a capable person. Currently, he could be said to be doing very well in the internal affairs of Xinmen Tianzong. These experiences, on one hand, trained his ability, and on the other hand, sharpened his will. In the beginning, although Yin Wei didn't keep his mouth shut and liked to talk big, deep down in his heart, he had always felt inferior when facing Su Yunsheng, Ying Laozi, Li Xingfei, and the others. Although he was the first batch of direct disciples, luck played a big part in passing the assessment. Secondly, there were constantly more talented disciples entering the sect, and the latecomers caught up, which made the fatty feel very pressured. However, Xiao Yan didn't look down on him. Instead, he taught him seriously and constantly gave the fatty an appropriate amount of burden, training his ability and temperament. As a result, Yin Wuwei's mentality had gradually become calm and stable. He wouldn't feel inferior or jealous because of the appearance of more outstanding disciples, and he wouldn't become complacent and lose himself just because he was doing well in the sect. Li Yuanfang asked, Tian Yu is in seclusion. Tian Tsang, Tian Feng, and Little Tong are all going with you, eldest senior brother. What about the other disciples, especially the third-generation direct disciples, who are going to do their homework? Xiao Yan smiled and turned to look at Zhu Yi. Second junior brother is going with us to the ancient longevity world. Hao Yang's clone will naturally stay behind, right? Zhu Yi nodded and said, Tiantai will follow us to the ancient longevity world. Although Tianbi isn't suitable to teach other disciples, I will leave Tianlin behind. I will also leave Hao Yang's clone on the mountain. When the time comes, I will temporarily take care of the Fun Tianya disciples' homework. Tiantai was Yang Tai's Taoist name, Tianbi was Ying Luozi's Taoist name, and Tianlin was Sun Shueter's Taoist name. They were all given by Zhu Yi, and they all came from Zhu Yi's own interpretation of the Tao of Changes. They represented Zhu Yi's expectations for his disciples. Sun Shueter's Taoist name, Tianlin, came from the Lin hexagram. Above the earth, below the DUI hexagram. It implied that if the situation was favorable, one should firmly grasp good opportunities, make decisions decisively, and act proactively. This was relative to Sun Shueter's weak and indecisive nature. Therefore, Zhu Yi gave her this Taoist name, hoping that she would continuously sharpen herself and go further and higher in the future. Li Yuanfang nodded. That's good. If that's the case, Tianfang will also follow me to the ancient longevity world. I will choose the second and third generation direct disciples, a total of 16 people to go with me. Zhu Yi said, I will also choose 16 people. Eldest senior brother, you can choose 32 people. It's just the number of the hexagram. There's no need for too many. After all, it's just a marriage proposal, not a marriage. Xiao Yan pointed at him and smiled. Is there a need to be in such a hurry? Zhu Yi smiled and shook his head. Bring Yin Song along, too. After the disciples finished their discussion, Lin Feng said with a smile, Xiao Qing has news. He has the intention to go to the ancient longevity world to pick some spirit herbs. The eyes of Xiao Yin and the other two lit up. Oh, what a coincidence. Ever since the end of the Xian annihilation battle, Yang Qing followed Lin Feng and returned to the divine land. Then, he began to treat the world by himself. During this period, he saved the lives of countless people. The target of his treatment was not the cultivation world. At least, not only the cultivation world, but the entire human world. Over the years, the number of mortals who were cured by his hands was uncountable. Among the common people, Yang Qing's reputation had already spread far and wide. He had the reputation of a medical saint and a medical immortal. If one were to ask the people in the secular world, the most famous person in Xianmen Tianzong, other than Lin Feng, would be Yang Qing. And this was under the situation where Yang Qing did not leave his name most of the time. He still had such a reputation. Seeing that Yang Qing did not have any intention to buy people's hearts or make a name for himself, the great Zhou, the great Qin, the northern militant, and even the other forces in the divine land, for the sake of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, tried to make things convenient for him. Over the years, Yang Qing had traveled all over the world. On the contrary, he had only returned to Yujing Mountain a few times. Every time, he would not stay for long and would leave again. Other than asking Lin Feng for advice on Tao, he would also give pointers to Zhou Yinsong. Then, he would go to his sect's medicine valley to collect medicinal herbs, or go to the pill room to return to the heavenly gold pavilion to refine pills. In the process of Yang Qing traveling the world, he would often collect medicinal herbs himself. Sometimes, for some rare spiritual herbs, he would often enter some dangerous places, and he would often go to some medium-sized worlds to find medicinal herbs. But this time, it was a coincidence. He was also preparing to head to the ancient longevity world at this time and try to find a few medicinal herbs that had already gone extinct in the divine land of the vast thousand worlds. Hearing that Lin Feng was going to bring Xiao Yin and the others to propose marriage, Yang Qing felt happy for his eldest senior brother. Naturally, he was prepared to meet up with Lin Feng and the others and head to the ancient longevity world together. In the void beside Lin Feng, the war god clone stepped out and stood next to him. Lin Feng said, Master's main body and Brontosaurus's clone have reached the final stage of cultivation. If there are no major changes in the situation, we will stay on Yujing Mountain. Therefore, this time, the war god clone will go to the ancient longevity world on our behalf. Xiaoyan quickly said, Master, I'm already very sorry for causing you to be distracted by my personal matters. Although his grandfather, old clan leader Xiao, was still alive, in terms of personal cultivation, the difference between him and Xiao Zhan'er's parents was too great. In the future, when they got married, it was fine to be the elder of the same clan. But this time, it was inevitable that it would be a little awkward if he went to propose marriage. As Xiaoyan's grandfather, even if he was an ordinary person, no one would look down on him. But in terms of weight, he naturally could not compare to Lin Feng going to propose marriage, even if Lin Feng was only going to send a clone. Xiaoyan naturally cannot personally contact them for this kind of matter. Little E, contact the people in the ancient longevity world and tell them why we are here. After setting a date, we will immediately set off. Lin Feng said to Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi nodded and immediately went to contact them. Chapter 1064. Zhu Yi contacted the bloodline of the ancient emperor of the ancient world of immortals and revealed his intention to visit the ancient world of immortals in person. Lin Feng would only be proposing marriage if he visited in person. Now, it was just to let the bloodline of the ancient emperor be mentally prepared and not have any other ideas. Any specific matters would be discussed after they met. After a brief silence, the people of the ancient world of immortals readily expressed their welcome. After all, the bloodline of the ancient emperor had already anticipated the matter between Xiao Yin and Xiao Zhen. Although the union of Xiao Yin and Xiao Zhen'er, no matter how their own people looked at it, in the eyes of outsiders, it would be seen as a marriage between the Xian Gate Sky sect and the ancient realm. But there is still a difference between proposing marriage and a true marriage. At most, it can only be counted as a kind of inclination and not a practical choice. Moreover, with Lin Feng visiting in person, regardless of whether the marriage proposal was successful or not, the ancient world of immortals had no reason to refuse. Although they did not decide to choose Xianmen Tianzong, they also did not choose Taishu Temple. After receiving the response from the ancient world of immortals, Lin Feng and his disciples settled the matters on Jade Capital Mountain and prepared to leave. Before leaving, Xiao Yin smacked his lips. It's a pity that the old black dragon, Jiayu, is in seclusion. Otherwise, I could negotiate with him and bribe him to help put up a front. When he said that, Li Yuanfang didn't know what to do, but Zhu Yi let out a rare chuckle. He naturally knew what Xiao Yin meant. After the Desolate Sea assembly ended, Xiao Yin returned from the ancient world of immortals for the first time and was teased by his master, Lin Feng. At that time, Lin Feng teased his eldest disciple that if he wanted to win over his father-in-law and mother-in-law, he would need a house, a car, and money. In other words, a cave abode, a mount, treasures, and cultivation resources. Just like Shi Tianhao, Xiao Yin had long been looking for a good place to build his own mansion. However, because he was too picky, he had yet to find a suitable one. But even if there is only the Burning Heaven Cliff on Jade Mountain, it is already enough. The Burning Heaven Cliff that relies on Jade Mountain to exist, through Xiao Yin's many years of construction and management, it is already an extremely wondrous blessed land. As for the treasures and cultivation resources he carried with him, apart from his fellow disciples, there were almost no one in the same realm who could compare to Xiao Yin. Even those who had higher cultivation than him were not as wealthy as he was. The only problem now was the mount. Of course, with Xiao Yan's current cultivation, strength, and status, not having a mount did not affect him in the slightest. This was actually just a joke. Lin Feng's god of war avatar looked back at Xiao Yan with a faint smile on his face. Brat, you don't usually offer incense, but now you're trying to make a last-minute effort. Xiao Yan chuckled. I wouldn't dare. I was just saying. Lin Feng said leisurely, what a good mount. I really do have one. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and Li Yuanfang were slightly stunned. They looked at each other, somewhat confused. There were many great demons in Xianmen Tianzong. For Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and the others, they would not really treat them as mounts. Instead, they treated them as equals. This also made the great demons feel a stronger sense of belonging to Xianmen Tianzong. However, it was different for Lin Feng. It was even an honor for the great demons in Xianmen Tianzong to become his mount. It's just that ever since Lin Feng returned from the Infinite Wasteland last time and used Ao Dragon King's true blood to baptize Jiayu and the White Light couple, the two demon dragons started to cultivate in seclusion and have not come out until now. Apart from Jiayu and Bai Guang, the remaining great demons, including Wu Tong, the former North Sea Whale King and the current Black Whale Great Sage, were actually not very suitable as mounts. It was fine in the sea, but it was a bit strange on land. Kuaox King was also in seclusion, preparing to break through to the late-stage Demon King realm. Fei Lian King and the Flying Snow Feather King were also suitable, but their cultivation levels were slightly lower. Master, are you talking about the nine-clawed Eagle King? Zhu Yi asked. Looking at Xianmen Tianzong, only the nine-clawed Golden Eagle was suitable. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. With a light flick of his finger, a white stream of light landed in front of the trio. After taking a closer look, Xiao Yin and the other two's eyes lit up. A pure-blooded white tiger. The creature that appeared in front of them was a fierce white tiger. Its two eyes flashed with a cold and demonic light, and its whole body flickered with a faint light. It was as cold as a metallic luster, but also like the stars in the sky, mysterious and unfathomable. It was a pure-blooded white tiger. Xiao Yin sized up the white tiger. Demon King realm. Master, Is this the son of the white tiger great sage that you captured? He found a mate and gave birth to a pure-blooded descendant? Lin Feng nodded with a smile. That's right. The guy took a Swanee as his wife and gave birth to this little guy. Speaking of which, the White Tiger clan is really talented. Because this little guy is a pure-blooded descendant of the White Tiger Great Sage. He was born a demon-nascent demon king. It's not as difficult for him to improve his cultivation as it is for Tunton and the others. Although he was still a demon king and didn't have an indestructible demon soul, as a pure-blooded white tiger, his level was higher than Jiayu and White Light. The primordial Heavenly Dragon clan used the method of bloodline differentiation to ensure that their bloodline could be passed on very well. But the different dragon clans below the Dharma ending realm were inferior to the pure-blooded white tiger. Xiao Yin moved closer to the white tiger king and said with a smile, "Kid, you'll follow me from now on." Unexpectedly, the white tiger king rolled his eyes. "You're the kid." The voice that came out of the mouth was that of a young girl. Xiao Yin was slightly stunned. "Female?" At the side, Lin Feng coughed. "Yes, her name is Yuanqing White Tiger. You can call her Yuanqing. She is indeed a female tiger." The White Tiger clan's bloodline was tyrannical. No matter which parent was a pure-blooded white tiger, the first child born would be a pure-blooded white tiger. Of course, there had never been a pure-blooded white tiger mating with a pure-blooded black tortoise or a pure-blooded vermilion bird. Therefore, no one knew what the situation would be like when a child was born under such circumstances. However, a female white tiger made Lin Feng feel a little strange. Why does it sound a little awkward to be used as a mount? Hiss, why does it feel more and more awkward? Lin Feng shook his head, dispelling the random thoughts that suddenly emerged in his mind. When he turned his head, he saw that Xiao Yin had already returned to his senses and was smiling at Yuanqing. "You'll benefit from following me." As he spoke, a fiery light flashed in his eyes. A domineering bluish-purple demonic fire appeared and condensed in Xiao Yan's eyes into a ferocious tiger roaring at the sky. Its killing intent was awe-inspiring and domineering. It was the image of a white tiger condensed with the netherworld evil flame. When Yuanqing first saw Xiao Yan, she could feel that he was extremely powerful. He was so powerful that she almost suffocated. Although he was not as powerful as her father, the White Tiger Great Sage, he could easily crush her death. However, the pride that was inherent in her race's bloodline and engraved in the depths of her demon soul made her unwilling to easily surrender. "I can admit that you are stronger than me and can easily kill me, but that doesn't mean that you can make me surrender, especially to be your mount." But now that she saw the white tiger formed by the netherworld evil flame in Xiao Yan's eyes, Yuanqing suddenly felt her heart throbbing. That throbbing came from the fact that she felt as if she could see the possibility of improving on the powerful foundation that she already had and achieving greater achievements than she had expected. This discovery surprised Yuanqing. She lowered her head and pondered for a while, then turned her head to look at Lin Feng beside her. Finally, she bowed slightly to Xiao Yan, expressing her intention to surrender. Xiao Yan chuckled. "Now on my mount." "No, in Master's words, it's my carriage. It's definitely very cool." He circled around Yuanqing and said with a smile, "If it's a white tiger with an immortal demon soul, it'll be even cooler. Not now, but it will be soon." Yuanqing snorted proudly, then looked at Xiao Yan from the corner of her eyes. "If you can make my father your mount, that'll be the coolest. The question is, do you have that ability?" Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Not now, but I will soon." Yuanqing glanced at Lin Feng beside her, then snorted at Xiao Yan. "Say that again when you have half of Sect Master's abilities." The human and tiger stared at each other. Lin Feng looked at Zhu Yi and Li Yuanfeng with a smile. "Yuanqing will carry your eldest senior brother. You too can come with Master." As for Master's mount, Lin Feng smiled and lightly tapped his finger. A tall figure appeared in front of everyone. It had the head of a tiger and the body of an ape, and its eyes were like the sun and moon. It was Great Sage Lu Yuan, whom Lin Feng had captured during his trip to the vast land of heaven. When the demon saw Lin Feng and his disciple, it bared its teeth with a wretched expression. However, it did not move at all, allowing Lin Feng to land on its shoulder. Although the Lin Feng before him was only a clone and not the main body, it was not like he had no room to resist. However, after being manipulated by Lin Feng for many years and setting up layers of restrictions, even if it was facing the most ordinary Xianmin Tianzong Jr. disciple, it would not have the guts to rebel. Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and Li Yuanfang looked at each other. Xiao Yin smiled and said, "Master, you're still the coolest. A great demon of the astral soul as your mount." In terms of bloodline talent, Lu Yuan was naturally inferior to White Tiger. However, the great sage Lu Yuan's cultivation was far inferior to Yuanqing's. Lin Feng smiled and said, "As for that old White Tiger, I still have other matters that I need his help with. This time, I'll deal with him first." He lowered his head and looked at great sage Lu Yuan. "You don't have to feel wronged. In the past, you made things difficult for my disciple. I'm already being merciful by not taking your life. I have no intention of humiliating you. As long as you do your job diligently and atone for your sins, you might be able to regain your freedom in the future. In the future, as long as you don't offend me again, I won't make things difficult for you. At that time, if you want to stay in my sect, that's up to you. After you've made contributions, I'll never mistreat my own people. Do you understand?" Great sage Lu Yuan was silent for a long time. He did not make a sound. In the end, he silently lowered his huge head, expressing his silent obedience. Lin Feng nodded. He looked at Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and Li Yuanfang. "All right, gather your disciples. We'll be on our way." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.